The day I went to the hospital for the induced abortion, the doctor asked me why I wanted to give up the child. I took a deep breath and finally said what was in my heart: I'm getting a divorce. As soon as I finished speaking, the doctor took off her mask. I was all too familiar with that face. It was my husband's older sister, Dr. Jo. She froze, and after a long while, asked, "Does my brother know?" I turned away, not answering. The operating room lights were very white. So white they had no warmth at all. The doctor handed me a form and a pen. "Have you thought it through?" Her voice was muffled through the mask. I nodded. The pen hovered over the paper. It was a consent form for the surgery. "Where are your family members? Why are you here alone?" I didn't look up, just stared at the words induced abortion. Those two words were like needles, piercing my eyes. "Why don't you want it?" The doctor pressed. My hands began to tremble, and the pen made a faint mark on the paper. I took a deep breath, the smell of disinfectant choking my lungs. "I'm getting a divorce." My voice was soft, but every word was clear. The surrounding air seemed to freeze. After a few seconds, the doctor across from me moved. She reached out and took off the blue mask on her face. A familiar face appeared. That face, I saw every weekend at family dinners. Jo Wenqi. The older sister of my husband, Jo Wenxuan. The professional concern in her eyes disappeared, replaced by a huge shock. "What did you say?" I looked at her, not repeating myself. "Song Yu, say it again." Her voice changed. I put down the pen in my hand and pushed away the consent form. "I want a divorce," I said. "So I can't keep this child." Jo Wenqi's face turned as white as the walls in an instant. Her lips moved, and it took her a long time to squeeze out a sentence. "My brother. Does my brother know?" I sat up from the operating table and started putting on my shoes. The movements were slow, like a rusty robot. I didn't answer her. That question is meaningless. What does he know? Does he know that my daily living expenses are only 33 yuan? Does he know that the last time I bought new clothes was 3 years ago? Does he know how his mother pointed at my nose in front of him and called me a barren hen? He knows nothing. He only knows that he has an obedient wife, a perpetually clean home, and a respectable job. "Song Yu." Jo Wenqi grabbed my wrist. "You can't leave. Explain yourself." Her grip was strong, making my bones ache. I looked at her. Her hands were well manicured, unlike mine, with grime that could never be washed out from under my fingernails. "Let go." My voice wasn't loud, but it was cold. She was stunned. Maybe she had never seen me like this. In the impression of everyone in the Zhou family, I had always been docile, even cowardly. I used force and shook off her hand. "This is my business." I turned and walked towards the door. Every step felt like treading on a blade. Reaching the door, I stopped, my hand on the doorknob. Dr. Jo. I didn't look back. "Thank you for today. But don't tell my husband. I'll tell him myself." After saying that, I opened the door and walked out. The hospital corridor was long and empty. My phone vibrated in my pocket. I took it out, and the words "husband" flashed on the screen. I stared at those 2 words for a long time. Then, I pressed the red button. The world became quiet. I walked forward step by step, without stopping. I didn't know where to go. But I knew that I would never go back to that home again. The little life in my belly seemed to sense something and moved gently. I covered my lower abdomen, and tears finally fell. I'm sorry, baby. Mom can't bring you into a world without love. We both deserve better. I didn't go home. I checked into a budget hotel, using the private savings I had secretly squirreled away. That money, I had saved penny by penny from my daily allowance of 33 yuan. After taking a hot shower, I felt alive again. My phone screen lit up several times. All were missed calls from Zhou Wenxuan, along with dozens of WeChat messages. Wife, why aren't you answering the phone? Where are you? Mom said she made chicken soup, come home and drink it. Are you feeling unwell? Send a message back. Reply as soon as you see this. I'm worried about you. I looked at those messages and laughed. Worried? What a ridiculous word. I turned off my phone and threw it on the bedside table. The world was completely silent. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. There was a water stain on the ceiling, like a distorted face. I started to think about how I got to this point. Zhou Wenxuan and I were classmates in college. When he pursued me, he was really good to me, bringing me breakfast every day, an umbrella on rainy days, and carrying me to the hospital when I was sick. Everyone said I had found a good man. I thought so too. After graduation, we got married as a matter of course. I thought a happy life was beginning. But that was just what I thought. On the first day of our marriage, his mother, my mother-in-law, pulled me aside. She said, Song-yu, our Zhou family is a respectable family. Now that you've married into our family, you have to abide by our family's rules. She said, when Xuan is busy with work, you have to take good care of him. You have to take on all the big and small things in the family. She said, as for that job of yours, I don't think you should do it anymore. A few thousand yuan a month isn't enough to cover the embarrassment. Stay at home and prepare to have a baby. Zhou Wenxuan stood next to her, not saying a word. I glanced at him, and he avoided my gaze. From that day on, my world was only that 120 square meter apartment. I became the Zhou family's free nanny. Washing clothes, cooking, mopping the floor. Every day when Zhou Wenxuan came home, he would just lie on the sofa and play with his phone. When I talked to him, he would respond with a huzz and ahas. When I asked him about work, he said, "What do you, a housewife, know?" Our communication became less and less. He began to measure everything about me with money. On the first of every month, he would transfer 1,000 yuan to me on time. He said, "This is your living allowance, spend it sparingly." 1,000 yuan. In this first-tier city, what can 1,000 yuan buy? Groceries, water, electricity, gas, property management. I don't dare buy new clothes, don't dare use good skincare products, don't dare go out to eat with friends. I am like a caged animal, having lost all social connections. Until I got pregnant. I thought, with a child, everything would get better. Zhou Wenxuan was indeed happy for a few days. My mother-in-law finally gave me a pleasant look. But soon, everything went back to square one. Zhou Wenxuan's late returns became more and more frequent. My mother-in-law's fault-finding became even worse. She said I was delicate, saying that when she was pregnant with Zhou Wenxuan, she was still working in the fields. I had severe morning sickness, vomiting everything I ate. My mother-in-law scolded me, "You're so useless, you can't even carry a child properly." I turned to Zhou Wenxuan for help. He just said impatiently, "My mom is doing it for your own good, can't you just let her have her way?" My heart began to grow cold, little by little, from that moment on. The last straw that broke the camel's back was last week. I had a prenatal checkup, and the doctor said I was a little anemic and told me to eat more nutritious food. I went home and cautiously discussed with my mother-in-law whether I could buy some beef. My mother-in-law glared at me. Eat beef? It's so expensive. When I was pregnant with Wen Xuan, I couldn't even afford eggs, but I still gave birth to such a healthy son. I didn't say anything and went back to my room. In the evening, I told Zhou Wenxuan. I said, "Honey, I went for a prenatal checkup today, and the doctor said I'm anemic." He was looking at stocks on the computer, without even turning his head. "Oh, then eat more red dates. I want to buy some beef." Buy beef? Didn't my mom say not to? Just listen to her, she's more experienced than you. Standing behind him, looking at his back, I suddenly felt very strange. Is this the man I'm going to entrust my life to? Does he really love me? Does he love me, or just a free nanny, a tool for carrying on the family line? That night, I thought all night long. When dawn broke, I made a decision. I must get a divorce. I cannot give birth to this child. I cannot let my child be born into such a cold and selfish family. I can't let him repeat my fate. The phone by the bed vibrated again. I picked it up to look. It was an unfamiliar number. I hesitated for a moment and answered. Song Yu. It was my mother-in-law's voice, shrill and angry. Where the hell have you been? When she told me everything. You actually dared to abort the child behind our backs. You venomous woman. Which hospital are you in? Get back here now. My mother-in-law's voice was like an awl, stabbing into my ears. I held the phone a little further away. Zhou, when she told you? I asked. My voice was so calm that even I was surprised. How dare you mention when she? If she hadn't gone to work today, our whole family would have been kept in the dark by you, you bitch. What do you want? Let me tell you, Song Yu, you can forget about touching a single hair on our Zhou family's grandson. You get back here right now. Or I'll make you regret it. I laughed. Your grandson? I said, he's also my child. Do you deserve to be a mother? How can you be such a cruel mother? Whether I deserve it or not is not for you to judge. I took a deep breath and said the words I had rehearsed countless times in my heart. Mom, Zhou Wenxuan and I are getting divorced. The other end of the phone went silent. Dead silent. After about 10 seconds, my mother-in-law's roar rang out again, 8 decibels louder than before. Divorce? Don't even think about it. You're dreaming. In our Zhou family, there are no divorced men. Only widowed women. Then I wished Zhou Wenxuan a speedy widowhood. After I finished speaking, I hung up the phone directly. And blacklisted the number. All in one go. The world was quiet again. But I knew it was just the calm before the storm. Sure enough, in less than 10 minutes, there was a knock on my door. Knock, knock, knock. Urgent and heavy. Song Yu. Open the door. I know you're in there. It was Zhou Wenxuan's voice. He's here. Faster than I expected. It seems that Zhou Wenxi not only notified my mother-in-law but also notified him. I didn't move or make a sound. Honey, open the door. Let's talk this through. His voice sounded anxious, even with a hint of pleading. The performance begins again. Don't listen to my mom's nonsense. That's just how she is. Don't take her seriously. I know you've been wronged, it's my fault, I didn't take care of you. Open the door, let me see you, okay? You're carrying our child. You can't be so willful. I listened to his deeply affectionate confession from inside the door and felt incredibly ironic. If I hadn't gone to the hospital today, if Zhou Wenqi hadn't found out, would he still be lying at home, waiting for me to come back and cook? Seeing that I didn't open the door, his patience seemed to run out. The knocking stopped. I thought he was gone. The next second, my phone rang. It was a call from the hotel reception. Hello, ma'am. Your husband said he has something urgent to discuss with you. Is it convenient for him to come up? It's not convenient, I said. But he said that if you don't open the door, he'll call the police. Call the police? I sneered. He really could do it. He's always like this, using every means to force me to submit. Let him come up, I said. I hung up the phone and walked to the door, looking out through the peephole. Zhou Wenxuan stood at the door, his hair a little messy, his shirt wrinkled. His face was full of anxiety and worry. What a performance. The Oscars owe him an award. I opened the door. As soon as the door opened a crack, he squeezed in. Honey! He hugged me tightly, squeezing me painfully. Where did you run off to? You scared me to death. I didn't struggle, letting him hug me. Like holding a piece of wood. He had a faint scent of women's perfume on him. Not mine. My heart sank to the bottom. He hugged me for a while, felt my stiffness, and slowly let go. He cupped my face in his hands and scrutinized me. What's wrong? Who made you angry? Tell me. His eyes were so gentle they could drip water. I looked at him and suddenly felt very tired. Zhou Wenxuan, I said. I'm here. Let's get divorced. His expression froze on his face. Gentleness, concern, worry, all vanished in an instant, leaving only shock and confusion. What did you say? He seemed not to have heard clearly. I said, let's get divorced. I repeated, emphasizing my tone. Why? He frowned. Just because my mom said a few things to you? Song Yu, when did you become so insensible? Insensible? I looked at him. Yes, I am insensible. I don't want to be your free nanny anymore. I don't want to be bossed around by your mom. I don't want to live on the 1,000 yuan you dole out to me. Is that enough reason? My voice wasn't loud, but every word was like a nail, hammered into his hypocritical mask. He was stunned. He probably didn't expect that I, who had always been docile, would say such a thing. Song Yu, you. He opened his mouth, seemingly searching for the right words to retort. Do you think I'm crazy? I said it for him. I'm not crazy, I'm very clear-headed. Zhou Wenxuan, ask yourself honestly, do you love me? He was stumped by my question. Of course I love you. He replied eagerly, as if trying to convince me, even more so to convince himself. Love me? I laughed. You love me by trapping me at home, letting me become disconnected from society? You love me by turning a blind eye to the humiliation my mom inflicts on me? You love me by not being willing to buy me even a piece of beef when I was pregnant? I was busy with work. He defended himself. I earn money to support the family, isn't that also for this family? How can you think of me like that? Earn money to support the family? I stared into his eyes. Where does your money go? His gaze flickered for a moment. That instant of flickering confirmed all my suspicions. Zhou Wenxuan, I'll only ask you one thing. My voice was very soft, but carried the weight of 1,000 pounds. Whose is the perfume on you? The gentle mask on Zhou Wenxuan's face cracked at that moment. He subconsciously took half a step back, his eyes darting around, not daring to meet my gaze at all. Perfume? What perfume? He raised his hand and sniffed his sleeve, wrinkling his brow with an exaggerated expression. There isn't any. Is it the smell of the hotel room? Honey, you're pregnant, your sense of smell will become more sensitive. He was still quibbling. Still treating me like the fool he could deceive at will. I didn't get angry, I just watched him quietly, like watching a clown. My calmness seemed to make him even more panicked than any hysterical questioning. It's not the smell of a hotel, I said faintly. It's Chanel No. 5. A very classic fragrance. The top notes are aldehydes and neroli, the middle notes are jasmine from Grasse and May Rose. The scent on you seems to have lingered for a few hours, with the base notes of sandalwood and vetiver being the most noticeable. With each word I spoke, Zhou Wenxuan's face turned a shade paler. He probably never knew that I, who only seemed to revolve around the kitchen and the market, would have such a clear understanding of women's perfumes. He thought my world consisted only of cooking oil, salt, soy sauce, vinegar, and that my nose could only distinguish between green onions, ginger, and garlic. He was wrong. Before marrying him, I was also the girl who would excitedly try out the latest perfumes with my girlfriends at department store counters. Chanel No. 5 was once my favorite scent, but I never had the heart to buy a bottle for myself. Because it was too expensive. And now, this scent that I once adored so much was on my husband, like a silent mockery, shattering my last bit of fantasy about love. You. How do you know so much? Zhou Wenxuan's voice was already shaky. He tried to use a harsh tone to hide his guilt. Don't let your imagination run wild. It's just that a female colleague was a little close during the meeting today. What's the big deal? Are you going to make a fuss about divorcing and aborting the child over such a small thing? Song Yu, you're being unreasonable. He started to label me. Unreasonable, making a mountain out of a molehill, these were his favorite tactics. For the past 3 years, every time I tried to express my dissatisfaction, he would use such words to shut me up, forcing me to swallow all my grievances, even making me wonder if it was really my own problem. But not today. Is that so? A female colleague? I chuckled softly, the laughter sounding particularly clear and cold in the quiet room. Then this female colleague of yours must be really nice to you. Not only did she leave her perfume all over you, but she also left her lipstick mark on your shirt collar. I reached out and pointed to his shirt collar. There was a very faint but real lipstick mark. It was a beautiful plum color. Zhou Wenxuan's body suddenly stiffened, as if struck by an electric current. He looked down in a panic to examine his collar. When he saw the mark, the color drained from his face instantly. He was done for. He knew he couldn't keep up the act anymore. He opened his mouth, his throat making a rattling sound, but he couldn't utter a word. The expression on his face shifted from panic to shock, and then to anger and embarrassment after being exposed. Song Yu. He suddenly raised his voice, his refined face twisting with anger. You investigated me? He didn't apologize, didn't explain, his first reaction was to accuse me. Accuse me of exposing his lies. How utterly ridiculous. I didn't investigate you. I looked at him, saying each word distinctly, it's just that your lies were too clumsy, your betrayal too obvious. Zhou Wenxuan, you can't even act professionally. You. He trembled with rage, pointing his finger at my nose. Fine, very well. Song Yu, I truly underestimated you. You've grown wings now, daring to talk to me like this, huh? I haven't grown wings. I met his angry gaze without flinching. It's just that I don't want to endure it anymore. I've had enough of these past 3 years. I don't want to live this life of lies and humiliation anymore. So you want a divorce? And to abort my child? He laughed as if he'd heard the biggest joke in the world. Song-yu, don't forget, you're a housewife. You haven't worked in 3 years. If you divorce me, how will you survive? What will you use to support yourself? This was a threat. A blatant, undisguised threat. He was certain I couldn't do without him. Certain that I would be firmly controlled by his economic power. That's none of your concern. I opened the bedside table drawer, taking out my ID card and bank card. Whether I survive or not is my own business. And has nothing to do with you anymore. Zhou Wenxuan looked at my resolute expression, and the anger in his eyes slowly turned to panic. He probably really realized that I wasn't joking. Honey, I was wrong. His attitude made a 180-degree turn, and he rushed over to grab my hand, pretending to kneel down. I was just talking nonsense. I was just temporarily confused. Forgive me this time, okay? I'll break up with her. I'll break up with her right away. We won't get divorced, we'll live well together, and have the baby. His tears came as quickly as he said it, looking incredibly sincere. If it had been a day earlier, I might have softened. But now, I only felt disgusted. I shook off his hand and looked at him coldly. Zhou Wenxuan, do you think I'll still believe you? Just as we were confronting each other, the room door was once again violently pounded on. This time, accompanied by my mother-in-law's extremely penetrating voice. Open the door! Song-yu, you little bitch, open the door for me. Hiding inside like a coward, are you? You have the guts to do it, but not to own up to it, huh? If you don't explain yourself clearly today, I'm not done with you. My mother-in-law had arrived. I knew that the real war had just begun. Zhou Wenxuan grabbed it like a lifeline and immediately ran to open the door. Outside the door stood not only my angry mother-in-law, but also my serious-faced, frowning sister-in-law, Zhou Wenqi. My mother-in-law rushed in like a gust of wind. When she saw me standing there unharmed, she didn't say a word, raised her hand, and was about to slap my face. You shameless poison woman. You actually wanted to kill my grandson. I was prepared for it and dodged her slap by stepping aside. My mother-in-law missed her strike, almost hurting her back. She supported her back and pointed at me, even more exasperated. You dare to hide. You're rebelling. Wenxuan, look at the good wife you married. Now she even dares to raise a hand to me. Zhou Wenxuan immediately stepped forward to support his mother, and lashed out at me. Song-yu, what's wrong with you? That's my mother. How dare you dodge? Do you even have any respect for elders? I was about to laugh out loud at his logic. If I don't dodge, should I just stand there and let her hit me? Zhou Wenxuan, your mother wants to hit my face, not yours. Of course, you can stand there and talk without feeling any pain. You. Zhou Wenxuan was choked speechless by me. My mother-in-law was even more furious, pointing at my nose and scolding, what's wrong with me hitting you? You've done something so outrageous, I'd be right to beat you to death. What sin did our Zhou family commit to have a jinx like you enter our home? Not only can't you produce an egg yourself, but when you finally get pregnant, you secretly get rid of it. Is your heart black? Her voice was sharp and loud, attracting other tenants in the hallway to poke their heads out to watch the commotion. Zhou Wenqi at least still had some regard for appearances. She walked in, closed the door, and then went to her mother's side, patting her back soothingly. Mom, don't get so worked up. Let's talk calmly. Your health is important. Having said that, she turned to me, her eyes, usually rational as a doctor's, now filled with scrutiny and disapproval. Song Yu, I know you might have had some disagreements with Wen Xuan and are feeling angry. But you can't use the child to vent your anger. An induced abortion is very harmful to your body, and it's a life. You can't be so selfish. As soon as she opened her mouth, she stood on the moral high ground to criticize me. Selfish. She said I was selfish. Eldest sister-in-law, you are also a woman, and a doctor. You should know that when a woman decides not to have her own child, it takes a great deal of determination and she has experienced immense despair. I looked at her, my voice not loud, but every word was clear. You don't know anything, so don't judge me so easily. Zhou Wenqi was stumped by my words, and her face looked a little unpleasant. No matter what your reasons are, hurting the child is wrong. She stubbornly insisted on her logic. Where has Wen Xuan wronged you? Isn't he good enough to you? He earns money to support the family, allowing you to be a leisurely rich housewife at home. What else are you dissatisfied with? A leisurely rich housewife? I looked at the expensive professional suit she was wearing, and then at my own hands, rough from years of doing housework, and I just felt a sense of irony. In their eyes, not going out to work means being leisurely. Asking for money means being a rich housewife. All my contributions and sacrifices, in their eyes, are worthless. Yes, he's just too good. I tugged at the corner of my mouth, forcing a cold smile. So good that he keeps his salary card to himself, giving me only 1,000 yuan a month for living expenses, and I have to keep a record of every vegetable I buy. So good that when his mother points her finger at my nose and yells at me, he always hides to the side and pretends to be mute. So good that when I needed nutrition the most during my pregnancy, he couldn't even bear to buy me a piece of beef. I'm not fortunate enough to enjoy such goodness. When I said these words, a hint of awkwardness flashed across the faces of my mother-in-law and Zhou Wenqi. Zhou Wenxuan's face turned even more livid. I had aired all of these family secrets in front of his sister, causing him to lose all face. What nonsense are you talking about? My mother-in-law immediately jumped out to retort. When did I ever not buy you meat? Isn't the refrigerator at home full every day? You're just an ungrateful woman. We feed you and give you drink, raising you to be plump and fair. What more could you want? Yes, the refrigerator is full. I nodded. But it's all filled with the green vegetables and tofu you love to eat, and the chili peppers I can't eat. I told you I couldn't eat spicy food during my pregnancy. Did you forget? The soup you make is always for your son, and I can't even get a sip of the broth. My mother-in-law was momentarily speechless. Seeing this, Zhou Wenxuan immediately stepped in to smooth things over. He took my hand, and his tone softened again. Honey, it's all my fault, I was negligent. It won't happen again, we'll buy whatever you want to eat, okay? Mom is getting old, she didn't mean to, just don't hold it against her. Let's go home, okay? Let's go home and talk it over. As he spoke, he winked at me, signaling me to soften my stance and get through the situation. This good cop, bad cop routine they had performed countless times in the past 3 years. And I had cooperated countless times. But today, I didn't want to act anymore. I forcefully shook off his hand, took a step back, and created distance between us. Zhou Wenxuan, stop acting, I'm tired. I glanced over the 3 of them, each of their faces wearing a hypocritical expression of for your own good. I'm going to make things clear today. First, I will not have this child. Second, I am determined to get a divorce. No one should try to persuade me. Whoever tries to persuade me is my enemy. After I finished speaking, the entire room fell into a dead silence. My mother-in-law was stunned by the determination in my eyes, her mouth open, unable to utter a word for a long time. Zhou Wenqi's brow furrowed even more tightly, as if reevaluating the situation at hand. As for Zhou Wenxuan, he looked at me, the facade on his face finally peeling away, revealing the underlying ruthlessness and calculation. He knew that the gentle approach was not working. It was time to get tough. Determined to get a divorce? Zhou Wenxuan sneered, finally tearing off his last bit of tender pretense. Song Yu, you're making divorce sound too simple. He slowly walked to the edge of the bed, plopped down, and looked at me with a haughty attitude, as if I was the one being judged. Okay, let's say you want a divorce. I'm asking you, after the divorce, what are you planning to do? He paused, his eyes filled with contempt. You haven't worked in 3 years, you've forgotten all your professional knowledge, and you're out of touch with society. What kind of job can you find? Washing dishes in a restaurant? Or being a shop assistant in a mall? How many $1,000s can you earn a month? You can't even afford rent. Hearing her son's words, the mother-in-law immediately found her backbone and chimed in, exactly. Who do you think you are? If you leave our Wenxuan, you won't even have food to eat. When you come back crying and begging us, we won't want you back, you second-hand good. The phrase second-hand good was like a poisoned dagger, plunged deep into my heart. So, in their eyes, I was nothing more than an item that could be discarded at any time. Although Zhou Wenqi didn't say anything, the look in her eyes was full of sympathy and pity, a kind of condescending gaze at the weak. She obviously agreed with her brother and mother's view that leaving the Zhou family would be a dead end for me. Her whole family stood neatly on the opposite side of me, using their self-righteous logic to plan a miserable future for me. They wanted to use fear to crush me. To make me afraid, to make me back down, to make me obediently roll back into the cage called home, and continue to be their nanny and breeding machine. Looking at their smug faces, I suddenly wasn't angry at all. I just felt pathetic. Pathetic for my own stupidity over the past 3 years, and pathetic for their ignorance at this moment. I don't need you to worry about my future, I said calmly. Whether I go to wash dishes or sleep under a bridge, it's better than staying in your disgusting home. My calmness completely infuriated Zhou Wenxuan. To him, a person about to be penniless shouldn't have this kind of attitude. Fine. Song Yu, you asked for this. He stood up, walked in front of me, and looked down at me condescendingly. You want a divorce, fine. But you have to leave with nothing. Everything in this family, the house, the car, the savings, all of it is my premarital property and what I earned from my work. It has nothing to do with you. You came to me with nothing, and you're going to get out with nothing. Don't even think about taking a penny. He finally revealed his trump card. To crush me with money. He thought this would be my Achilles heel. And, he added, with a cruel glee on his face, don't forget, you're pregnant now. Which company would want a pregnant woman about to give birth? Once you have the baby, you'll be even harder to find a job. When the time comes, you'll have a burden and no money. I'd like to see how you survive. The mother-in-law laughed triumphantly on the side. Did you hear that? Leave with nothing. That's what you get for going against our Zhou family. Looking at their ugly faces, the last bit of affection in my heart completely dissipated. I didn't argue with them. Because I knew it was useless to reason with a bunch of robbers. I just silently walked to my suitcase and opened it. Zhou Wenxuan and the others thought I was packing up to leave, and their faces revealed smug expressions. However, I didn't take out any clothes. From the hidden compartment of my suitcase, I took out a craft paper document bag. Then, in front of all of them, I took out a thick stack of documents from the bag. I neatly arranged the documents, one page at a time, on the cheap hotel coffee table. The first document was the bank statement showing Zhou Wenxuan transferring me 1,000 yuan every month for the past 3 years, clearly labeled living expenses. The second document was my record of household expenses, with every purchase of groceries and utility bill payment recorded clearly. The third document was the audio evidence I had collected of my mother-in-law verbally abusing me. Although fragmented, it was enough to prove that I had been living under mental oppression for a long time. The fourth document was the most important. It was a stack of photos. The photos showed Zhou Wenxuan with a young and beautiful girl. They were feeding each other intimately in a restaurant, kissing in a movie theater, and in a luxury goods store. Zhou Wenxuan was smiling as he bought the girl a designer bag that I had only ever seen in magazines. The last photo was of them walking hand in hand into an upscale residential complex, from the back. The bottom right corner of the photos clearly showed the date of the photo being taken. The most recent one was just last night. The night I wanted to eat a piece of beef because I was anemic, and was refused. When I laid all of these things out, the entire room was deathly silent. The smug smile on my mother-in-law's face froze. She picked up a photo in disbelief, her hand shaking like a leaf in the autumn wind. The calmness and rationality on Zhou Wenxi's face also disappeared, replaced by shock and embarrassment. As for Zhou Wenxuan, he stood there like a statue struck by lightning, motionless, his face turning from iron blue to ashen. The scent of Chanel No. 5 on him seemed to take on a concrete form at that moment. I looked up, met his horrified gaze, and slowly opened my mouth. Zhou Wenxuan, you're right, regarding the divorce, I should leave with nothing. However, I paused, picked up the stack of photos, waved them in front of him, and said, word by word, with absolute clarity, it's you who should leave with nothing. We'll see each other in court. Oh, right, I forgot to tell you. I took back the documents, looked at the pale faces of his family, and revealed the first heartfelt smile I had given in 3 years. I've already hired a lawyer. Time seemed to freeze at that moment. My mother-in-law's face, distorted by anger, was now filled with disbelief. She picked up a photo of Zhou Wenxuan and the girl kissing in the restaurant with trembling fingers, as if she had picked up a branding iron, and with a shudder, the photo floated to the ground. Zhou Wenxi reacted the fastest. She rushed forward in one swift movement, not to look at the photos, but to try to gather all the documents and evidence on the table. Her movements carried a professional composure, but her slightly pale lips and rapid breathing betrayed her inner turmoil. Song Yu, these things. She wanted to say something, but didn't know where to start. As for Zhou Wenxuan, after the initial deathly silence, he finally snapped out of his petrified state. But the first thing he did wasn't to repent or apologize, but a beast-like frenzy after being stripped of all pretense. You actually dared to follow me. You sent people to investigate me. He roared, like a maddened bull, lunging at me, his target clear, the file folder in my hand. I was prepared. The moment he lunged, I immediately sidestepped and retreated, clutching the file folder tightly to my chest. He missed, becoming even more enraged, and turned to grab at me again. Give me that stuff. You crazy woman. His eyes were bloodshot, and that once charming, refined face was now distorted like a demon. I had no doubt that if his sister wasn't there today, he would have attacked me without hesitation. Zhou Wenxuan. What are you doing? Calm down. Zhou Wenxi finally snapped out of her shock and rushed forward, desperately hugging her brother's waist from behind. As a doctor, she had probably seen many out-of-control situations, but she never imagined that the protagonist of this one would be her usually admired brother. Let go of me. Sis. Let go of me. I'm going to tear that bitch apart. Zhou Wenxuan struggled wildly, spewing the most venomous curses from his mouth. Slap. A crisp, loud slap echoed abruptly in the chaotic room. The whole world went silent. The one who hit him wasn't me, and it wasn't Zhou Wenqi. It was my mother-in-law. She stood there, trembling, her old eyes filled with disappointment, anger, and a pain of utter betrayal. This slap was delivered with all her strength, and 5 clear finger marks immediately appeared on Zhou Wenxuan's face. Zhou Wenxuan was stunned. He looked at his mother in disbelief, his lips trembling. "Mom, you hit me? I'm hitting you to wake you up, you beast." Her voice was hoarse, with a sob in it. "How could I have given birth to such a shameless thing? The face of our Zhou family has been completely disgraced by you today." She cursed, and tears fell. But I knew that she wasn't crying because she felt sorry for the grievances I had suffered over the past 3 years, or because her son had betrayed the marriage. She was crying because her proud, perfect son had revealed his most shameful side, because the decent fig leaf of our Zhou family had been so rudely torn off by me, causing her to lose face in front of her sister-in-law, and even more because she knew in her heart that the evidence in black and white on the table meant that the Zhou family was about to face a huge financial loss. Her tears were for her face and her money. Zhou Wenxuan was completely deflated by his mother's slap. He stopped struggling, just covered his face, and stared at me with resentment, as if I were his father's killer. An eerie silence fell over the room. Finally, Zhou Wenqi broke the silence. She let go of Zhou Wenxuan, tiredly rubbed her brow. She glanced at the photos scattered on the floor, then at her stunned brother and sobbing mother, and finally, her gaze landed on me. This time, her eyes lacked the previous condescension and moral judgment, replaced by a complex emotion, shock, embarrassment, but more of a calm and measured approach to a thorny issue. She took a deep breath and said to me in an almost formulaic, negotiation-like tone, "Songyu, sit down. Let's talk." She pointed to the sofa opposite me. I knew that the most difficult psychological warfare was now officially beginning. They were no longer going to use violence and threats, they were going to start using reason and benefit to solve the problem. I didn't say anything, just held the file bag in my arms and sat down on the single sofa opposite them, using silence to tell them that my patience was limited. I saw Zhou Wenqi frown at my movement, but she forced herself to remain calm. Wenxuan cheated, and he was wrong. The Zhou family acknowledges this. She opened her mouth, the first sentence setting the tone, trying to take the initiative in the conversation. None of us expected him to do such a bastard thing. Mom and I are on your side and will help you teach him a lesson. She spoke beautifully, first admitting the mistake, and then trying to pull me to the position of being on the same front as them. But, she changed her tone. "Songyu, you shouldn't wash your dirty linen in public. If this matter goes to court, it will not benefit anyone. Wenxuan is a public official. If this gets out, his future will be ruined. The Zhou family will never be able to hold our heads up in front of relatives and friends." She paused, her eyes fixed on me, and began to put forward her core argument. "How about this? We won't go through legal procedures. We'll settle it privately. You can bring up any conditions. As long as they're reasonable, we'll try our best to satisfy you. Consider it. Compensation from the Zhou family to you." Compensation. She used this word to lightly define my 3 years of youth, all the hurts I had suffered, and the little life about to pass away in my womb. As if as long as money is given, everything can be smoothed over and forgotten. I looked at her rational to the point of ruthless face and suddenly smiled. "My condition is very simple." I met the 3 of their nervous gazes and said clearly, "I want Zhou Wenxuan to leave with nothing." When I said the words "leave with nothing" again, the atmosphere was completely different from the last time. Last time, it was Zhou Wenxuan's threat, laced with condescending charity and contempt. This time, it's my demand, carrying undeniable calmness and resolve. Impossible. The first to jump up in opposition was my mother-in-law. She wiped away her tears, as if the heartbroken old mother from just moments ago was merely an illusion. At this moment, she was like a cat whose tail had been stepped on, instantly bristling with rage. Song Yu, are you crazy about money? Leaving with nothing? How dare you even say that? The house is in my name, what does it have to do with you? All the money in the house was earned by my son with great difficulty, why should it all go to you? Her words were half true and half false. This marital home was indeed in her name on the property deed, a typical premarital preparation to guard against the daughter-in-law. However, Zhou Wenxuan's salary income over the past 3 years was clearly shared marital property. I ignored her shouting, my gaze calmly fixed on Zhou Wenqi, who was the one who truly held the power. Zhou Wenqi's expression was very ugly. As an elite who had been navigating society for many years, she of course understood that although the request I made was harsh, it was not entirely impossible given the conclusive evidence of Zhou Wenxuan's marital infidelity. The law would protect the innocent party, especially in the division of property. Even if it couldn't make him leave with absolutely nothing, it would be enough to bleed him dry. Song Yu, your request is too much. Zhou Wenqi's voice turned cold. You're pushing someone to their death. You've been husband and wife, there's no need to be so ruthless. Always leave a way out, so you can meet again in the future. Leave a way out? I reacted as if I had heard the biggest joke in the world, eldest sister-in-law, when your whole family pointed at my nose and told me to get out with nothing, did you ever think of leaving me a way out? When Zhou Wenxuan took the money he earned to buy designer bags for other women, while I couldn't even afford a piece of beef, did he ever think of leaving me a way out? My questions were like sharp knives, silencing Zhou Wenqi. She was silent for a moment, seemingly quickly assessing my determination and the chips in my hand. Song Yu, don't be so emotional. She switched tactics, beginning to reason with me. Let's do the math. Even if you go to court, this house is premarital property, you won't get any of it. The only thing you can get is Wenxuan's salary savings from these 3 years. He also spends a lot of money usually, so he doesn't have much saved up. You'll hire a lawyer and spend time and energy suing, and the money you get in the end might not even be more than what we're offering you now. She paused, throwing out her bait. How about this, we'll give you a number. 300,000. She held up 3 fingers, her tone laced with a condescending sense of superiority. You take this 300,000, sign a divorce agreement, get rid of the child, and hand over all the evidence. From now on, we won't owe each other anything. This money is enough for you to start a new life. For you, this is the most dignified and beneficial choice. 300,000. Use 300,000 to buy out my 3-year marriage, buy all my evidence, buy my dignity, and then conveniently take care of the child in my belly. In their eyes, this was already a great favor. Zhou Wenxuan also looked up, a glimmer of hope flashing in his eyes. Although 300,000 was painful for him, it was undoubtedly the best outcome compared to being sued and ruined in court. His mother opened her mouth, as if wanting to say that 300,000 was too much, but Zhou Wenqi glared at her, silencing her. The 3 of them looked at me with an air of you should be grateful, waiting for me to nod in agreement. Looking at them, I suddenly felt very sad. They will never understand. What I wanted was never the money. What I wanted was justice. What I wanted was for them to pay the price for what they had done. I slowly shook my head. Too little. Zhou Wenqi's brow furrowed immediately. Song Yu, don't push your luck. 300,000 is already a huge sum for a housewife who hasn't worked in 3 years. Is it? I took another document from the file bag. It was what I had prepared long ago, detailed salary records of Zhou Wenxuan over the past 3 years, as well as an estimate of the assets in his stock and fund accounts. All of this was collected through legal channels, under the guidance of a lawyer. I pushed the document to the center of the coffee table. According to my lawyer's preliminary estimate, Zhou Wenxuan, whom you claimed didn't save much money, has marital property, including savings, stocks, and financial products, with a total value of about 1,200,000. As soon as I finished speaking, Zhou Wenxuan and his mother's faces turned ashen. They never expected that I knew so much about their financial situation. I didn't stop, continuing, according to the marriage law, in the division of joint property, the innocent party can request a larger share when the other party has committed adultery. That is to say, I can get at least half of this money, which is 600,000. If the judge sympathizes with my situation and takes into account that I need to raise a child, this amount will be even higher. In addition, I looked up, my gaze coldly sweeping over Zhou Wenxuan. I can also demand compensation for mental distress from the offending party. The evidence of the long-term mental abuse and verbal humiliation that you and your mother have inflicted on me, my lawyer says, although it may not compensate a lot of money, is enough to make your and your mother's image in court become very, very ugly. So, I made my final summary, looking at Zhou Wenqi, whose face was already as pale as death. You think you can get rid of me with 300,000? Sister-in-law, you are an educated person. Do you think I'm stupid, or do you think I'm stupid? My words exploded like a bombshell in the small hotel room. The entire room fell into a deathly silence once again, with only the hum of the central air conditioning audible, making the silence all the more suffocating. My mother-in-law was completely speechless, her mouth gaping like a fish out of water, her eyes filled with terror and unfamiliarity as she looked at me. She probably couldn't comprehend, after living a whole life, how the daughter-in-law who had once been so meek and submissive in front of her, enduring her scolding and abuse, could suddenly transform into a foe with clear logic and armed with the law. Zhou Wenxuan, on the other hand, had completely collapsed onto the sofa, his eyes vacant as he muttered to himself, 1,200,000. How could you know? How could you? The look in his eyes was no longer anger, but pure fear. He wasn't afraid of me, but of the invisible law behind me. Zhou Wenqi's expression was the most complex of all. She pressed her lips together tightly, staring intently at me, and for the first time, a genuine sense of dread flickered in her shrewd eyes. She knew that every word I said was not an empty threat. She knew that she had lost this negotiation. From the moment I produced that list of assets, they had lost all initiative. When did you start preparing all this? After a long silence, Zhou Wenqi finally squeezed out the words. Her voice was dry and filled with frustration. This was the question she most wanted to know, and also the one she was most afraid to hear the answer to. I looked at her and replied calmly, from the moment I decided I wouldn't tolerate it anymore. From which moment was it? Was it the moment when my mother-in-law pointed at my nose, calling me a barren hen, and Zhou Wenxuan turned his head to pretend to admire the scenery? Or was it the moment when I was suffering from terrible morning sickness, and he impatiently said, "Every woman gets pregnant, you're just being delicate"? Or perhaps, was it the moment when I discovered the ambiguous chat logs and transfer information on his phone, and he told me that they were just ordinary colleagues? I couldn't remember anymore. Too many disappointments accumulated into despair. And when a person is truly desperate, all that remains is composure and clarity. Fine. Song Yu, I'll give it to you. Zhou Wenqi took a deep breath, as if making a decision. She stood up and, without looking at me, said to her brother and mother, "Let's go." Go? We can't just leave like this. My mother-in-law was frantic, grabbing her daughter's sleeve. What about the money? She's going to take all our family's money. Then what do you want to do? Zhou Wenqi shook off her hand violently, displaying impatience towards her mother for the first time. Do you still want to hit her? Or do you want to kneel down and beg her? The initiative is in her hands now. What's the point of us staying here, other than humiliating ourselves? She turned her head and glared fiercely at the distraught Zhou Wenxuan. Look at the mess you've made. Are you satisfied now? Zhou Wenxuan shrunk back, not daring to say a word. Zhou Wenqi ignored them, picked up her bag, and walked straight towards the door. Her high heels clicked sharply and rapidly on the floor. Reaching the door, she stopped, not turning her head, and coldly dropped a sentence. Song Yu, since you want to go through legal procedures, then see you in court. We, the Zhou family, will see it through to the end. After speaking, she opened the door and walked out without looking back. Seeing this, my mother-in-law glared at me fiercely, her eyes full of resentment as if she wanted to devour me alive. She also knew that there was no point in staying any longer, so she could only help her son, who was like a lump of mud, and staggered out. With a bang, the door was slammed shut. The whole world was finally completely quiet. All the strength in my body seemed to be drained away at that moment, and I leaned heavily against the back of the sofa, gasping for breath. The file bag containing all the evidence in my arms was crumpled by my sweaty palms. I won. At least, I won this first battle. I looked at the gray sky outside the window, and tears flowed down uncontrollably. These were not tears of weakness, but of release. It was a farewell to the humble, repressed, and dark self of the past 3 years. I took out my phone and turned off airplane mode. Countless notifications and messages flooded in instantly. I ignored Zhou Wenxuan's missed calls and directly dialed a number. Hello, is this Attorney Zhang? It's me, Song Yu. A capable and steady female voice came from the other end of the phone, Ms. Song, how did it go? They came. I wiped away my tears and my voice returned to calm. Everything is as you predicted. They threatened me first, then tried to buy me off with 300,000. Attorney Zhang chuckled lightly on the other end of the phone. I knew it. Families like theirs, who think so highly of themselves, will never learn to respect people, and will only use money to solve problems. You didn't agree, did you? Of course not. I said, I showed them the list of assets as you taught me. Well done. Attorney Zhang's tone carried a hint of appreciation. This step is to completely shatter their illusions and let them know that this matter cannot be settled amicably. From now on, do not have any private contact with them, leave everything to me. Tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, I will submit a divorce petition and property preservation application to the court. Okay, thank you, Attorney Zhang. You're welcome, it's my job. You get some rest, the next battle will be a tough one, so get your strength up. Hanging up the phone, I felt a huge weight finally lift from my heart. I stood up, walked to the window, and pulled open the heavy curtains. The rain had stopped outside some time, and a ray of sunlight pierced through the clouds, shining on my face, warm and comforting. The little life in my belly seemed to sense my mood and moved gently. I covered my lower abdomen and whispered, "Baby, I'm sorry. But everything will be all right. Mom will fight for a brand new and bright future for you and for myself." Just then, the phone screen lit up again. It was a text message from Zhou Wenxuan. Wife, I really know I was wrong. Please give me another chance, okay? For the sake of our child. I looked at the message, my face devoid of any expression. I reached out my finger, long pressed, and then selected delete. Along with this contact, I added him to the blacklist. Goodbye, Zhou Wenxuan. Goodbye, my dead love and marriage. My new life officially begins from this moment. After the storm in the hotel room, I was sleepless all night. Not because of fear or anxiety, but a kind of unprecedented, almost manic clarity. The water stain on the ceiling seemed to have become no longer distorted in the light of dawn, just an ordinary mark. For the past 3 years, I felt like I was living in an airtight glass. The people outside thought I was living a peaceful life, but only I knew that the air inside was getting thinner and thinner, and every breath was accompanied by a dull pain. And yesterday, I smashed that with my own hands. The broken glass cut my hands and my heart, but the fresh air that rushed in was the taste of freedom. I picked up my phone, and the first thing I did was not to see what madness the Zhou family was up to again, but to open the browser and search for another private hospital in the city known for its obstetrics and gynecology. I couldn't go to the hospital where Zhou Wenqi was anymore. Everyone there might look at me with judgment and pity, and I didn't want to put myself in that situation again. The phone was quickly connected, and the nurse's voice was gentle and professional. "Hello. This is Anha Hospital, how can I help you?" "Hello, I would like to make an appointment for an induced labor." When I said this, my voice was much calmer than I expected. My hand gently rested on my lower abdomen, where a small life was unknowingly being conceived. A pang of sorrow rose in my heart, but there was no wavering. To bring him into a family full of lies, indifference, and calculation, to let him face a cheating father, a mean grandmother, a calculating aunt, and a physically and mentally exhausted mother who is unable to protect him from birth. That is the real cruelty. Ending this wrong marriage and giving up this child who shouldn't have come at this time is the last and only decent thing I can give him. "Okay, madam, how many weeks pregnant are you? Have you had a detailed prenatal examination before?" I told her about my situation in detail, and the nurse quickly arranged a surgery time for me next Monday and told me the preparations and precautions I needed to take. Hanging up the phone, I breathed a long sigh of relief, feeling that the heaviest stone in my heart had finally been moved away. After finishing that task, I finally dug out the number in my contacts that I hadn't dialed in ages, but had always kept pinned at the top. The phone rang 3 times before being picked up, and a whirlwind voice came through. "My darling, you've finally decided to contact me. If you didn't show up, I was going to report you missing and say that Zhou Wenin had sacrificed you to the heavens." Liu, my best friend from college, and the only thing I could call home in this city. Listening to her vibrant voice, my eyes welled up. All the strength and pretense I had shown in front of the Zhou family crumbled in that instant. Yeah. My voice was choked with tears. "What's wrong? Did they bully you? Where are you now?" "I'll be right there." Liu on the other end of the phone immediately became anxious. "I'm okay. I left the house." I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself down, and then, in the most concise language possible, I told her everything that had happened in the past few days, from deciding on the induced abortion to running into Zhou Wenqi in the hospital, to last night's showdown at the hotel. There was a long silence on the other end of the phone. Just when I thought the signal had been lost, Liu's voice rang out again, filled with a suppressed rage. "Song Yu, I'm only going to ask you one question. Do you have enough evidence to nail that scumbag Zhou Wenin to the wall? My lawyer says it's enough to make him pay a heavy price as the at-fault party in the property division." "Good." Liu's voice suddenly rose. "Divorce. You have to divorce him. Right now. Why keep such a subhuman creature around? And his mother and sister, they're a bunch of snakes and rats, not a good one among them. What kind of life have you been living for the past 3 years? I told you long ago that Zhou Wenin is a hypocrite, but you wouldn't believe me." She ranted and raved, and the knot in my stomach loosened a lot. "Don't stay in the hotel anymore, it's not safe. Who knows if that family will come knocking on your door again and go crazy. Send me the address, and I'll come pick you up right away. Come stay with me. My apartment isn't big, but it's definitely safe. From today on, I'm your personal bodyguard. If anyone dares to lay a finger on you, I'll break their arm." After hanging up the phone, I looked at the screen and smiled. It was probably the happiest I had smiled in the past 3 years. So, this is what it feels like to be firmly chosen and protected. I started packing my small suitcase. The contents were pitifully few, a few old clothes that I had worn for a long time, some cheap skincare products, and an old phone that I had used for several years, with a cracked screen. This was all the property of my 3-year marriage. I gave up that house worth millions, gave up the wealth of Zhou Wenin that I had never truly owned, and in exchange, I got the freedom in this suitcase, and a friend who was willing to go to the ends of the earth for me. This deal was more than worth it. The Zhou family was already in complete chaos when I moved into Liu's cozy little apartment, temporarily finding a space to breathe. These details were later pieced together by Liu through her network, after making several inquiries. After Zhou Wenqu led her mother and brother in a disheveled retreat from the hotel, they convened a tense family meeting at the Zhou residence that very evening. The core agenda of the meeting, of course, was how to deal with me, the traitorous daughter-in-law, and the impending divorce lawsuit. The first to break down was my mother-in-law. When she learned from Zhou Wenqu that the evidence I had was sufficient to make Zhou Wenquan bleed profusely, she immediately launched into her traditional routine of crying, and threatening suicide. She sat on the floor, slapped her thighs, cursed me as an ungrateful wretch and a bringer of bad luck, and lamented that the assets she had painstakingly accumulated were about to be divided in half by an outsider like me. Zhou Wenquan, on the other hand, seemed to have lost his backbone, sitting listlessly on the sofa the whole time. He wasn't thinking about how to salvage our relationship, nor was he reflecting on his mistakes. Instead, he repeatedly muttered, "How could she know? How could she know how much money I have?" For him, my intimate knowledge of his financial situation was far more terrifying than the discovery of his affair. It meant he had lost absolute control over me. The only one who maintained a semblance of composure was Zhou Wenqu. She listened to her mother's wails and her brother's murmurs with annoyance, and finally made a decision. "We won't gain anything by confronting her head-on right now," she analyzed coldly. "That woman, Song Yu, has changed. There must be someone guiding her behind the scenes. We can't provoke her anymore. Mom, you go back to the old home tomorrow and visit Song Yu's parents." "What am I going to do at their house?" My mother-in-law stopped crying, asking in confusion. "Go cry, go complain." A hint of calculation flashed in Zhou Wenqu's eyes. "You just say that Song Yu has gone bad in the city, not only wants to abort our Zhou family's child, but also wants to divorce Wenquan and run off with all our family's money. Throw all the dirty water on her. I don't believe that her parents will let her run wild when they find out. No parents in the world would stand by and watch their daughter do such scandalous things." Yes. As soon as my mother-in-law heard this, she immediately thought it was a good idea, her eyes lighting up. "I'll go right away. I'll let their family know what kind of good daughter they raised." After appeasing her mother, Zhou Wenqu turned her attention to her brother. "As for you, Zhou Wenquan, from now on, transfer all your bank cards, stock accounts, all the movable money, try to transfer it all out. Transfer it to Mom's name, or to a trusted relative. Hurry! The court's asset preservation order could come down at any time, and it will be too late then." Woken up by her sister's hint, Zhou Wenquan came to his senses and immediately began fumbling with his phone, trying to transfer his marital assets. And so, in the dead of night, his family began a conspiracy against me, each with a clear role to play. However, they underestimated my lawyer, Zhang, and her professionalism and efficiency. The next morning at 10, just as Zhou Wenquan was frantically trying to redeem a wealth management product early, his phone received an official text message from the bank. "Dear Mr. Zhou Wenquan, according to the 202X XFA Min Chu X civil ruling and the Notice of Assistance in Execution from the XX Court, your savings card account ending in XXXX has been judicially frozen for a period of 1 year. Immediately afterwards, freezing notices from securities companies, fund platforms, Alipay, WeChat. One after another, like death warrants, completely occupied Zhou Wenquan's phone screen. All his accounts were frozen before he could transfer a single penny. Ah! A desperate roar came from the Zhou family's living room. Zhou Wenxuan stared at the series of frozen messages on his phone, his eyes turning bloodshot. He frantically refreshed the page, trying to transfer even a single penny, but all operations failed. He was done for. All the capital he was so proud of, all that he used to control me, had become a pile of visible but untouchable numbers at this moment. Just as he was on the verge of collapse, his phone rang. It was a strange number. He answered the phone irritably and roared, "Who is it?" A polite voice came from the other end of the phone. "Hello, is this Mr. Zhou Wenxuan? I am from XX law firm. On behalf of MS Song Yu, I am formally notifying you that we have filed a divorce lawsuit with the court. The relevant litigation documents and court summons will be mailed to you in the coming days. Please pay attention to check them." This call was the last straw that broke the camel's back. Zhou Wenxuan's sanity completely snapped. He hung up the phone, found my number, and dialed it again with hysterical madness. The moment the phone connected, all the anger, fear, and unwillingness he had accumulated turned into a vicious roar. "Song Yu! You viper! You actually dared to freeze my money! Are you trying to force me to death? Let me tell you, don't be smug. You think you've won? I won't let you have an easy time. I will definitely not let you have an easy time." I was sitting on the balcony with Liu, drinking tea and enjoying the long-lost sunshine. I pressed the speakerphone button. Zhou Wenxuan's exasperated howls, like those of a defeated dog, echoed clearly in the small balcony. Listening to this, Liu's lips curled into a mocking sneer as she spoke clearly and deliberately into the phone. "Hello? Is this Mr. Zhou? I'm sorry, Song Yu is currently unavailable to take your call. She's deciding whether to get a manicure or a SPA this afternoon. Oh, and by the way, it's all with my money. Do you have a problem with that?" With that, she hung up the phone without waiting for a response. I couldn't help but laugh at Liu's arrogant and protective attitude. Yes, I have friends, lawyers, and a way out. And you, Zhou Wenxuan, what do you have besides those frozen numbers? Zhou Wenxuan's call was just a small interlude in this war. I knew in my heart that Zhou Wenxi's real trump card was my parents, who were far away in my hometown. Sure enough, the next afternoon, I received a call from my dad. His voice sounded tired and anxious, with a cautious hint of probing. "Xiao Yu, where are you now? Are you all right?" "Dad, I'm fine. I'm with friends, and I'm safe." I tried to make my voice sound as relaxed as possible. That's good, that's good." My dad responded dryly, and silence fell on the other end of the phone. I could even hear my mom urging him in a low voice. After a long while, my dad seemed to have made up his mind and spoke again, his tone filled with difficulty and bewilderment. "Xiao Yu, today, your mother-in-law came to our house." My heart sank. What was coming had finally arrived. "What did she say?" I asked calmly. She cried like a waterfall, saying that you've changed in the city, that you insist on divorcing Wenxuan, and that you even want to abort the baby. She said Wenxuan even knelt down and begged you, but you were determined not to turn back. She also said you hired a lawyer to sue them, wanting to take all their money. As my dad repeated these words, his voice grew softer and softer, filled with confusion and embarrassment. For an honest farmer who had lived an upright life, words like divorce and lawsuit were so distant and jarring. "Xiao Yu, what exactly is going on? Is there some misunderstanding between you two?" Husband and wife, quarrels happen, can't you talk things out? Why do you have to make it this far? That's a life, how could you? I could understand my dad's reaction. In his simple values, a woman, especially a pregnant woman, taking the initiative to divorce and abort the baby was simply incomprehensible. I didn't rush to refute or complain, but waited for him to finish speaking. Then, with unprecedented calmness and clarity, I said, "Dad, don't worry, and don't believe everything she says. Let me explain it to you slowly." In the next half hour, I peeled open my 3-year marriage, layer by layer, like an onion, and presented it to my father. I told him that Zhou Wenxuan only gave me 1,000 yuan for living expenses each month, and that 1,000 yuan had to cover all the utilities and groceries for the family. I told him that the last time I bought new clothes was 3 years ago, and the coat I was wearing was the one you bought me before I got married. I told him how my mother-in-law humiliated me with the most hurtful words in front of Zhou Wenxuan time and time again, and my husband always chose to turn a blind eye, even blaming me in turn for being insensible and for not arguing with my elders. I told him that after I became pregnant, no one in the family truly cared about my health. When I had morning sickness and couldn't eat, my mother-in-law scolded me for being delicate. When I was anemic and wanted to eat something good, my mother-in-law said I was greedy and wasteful. Finally, I told him that while I was silently enduring to save a few dozen yuan on beef, my husband was using our joint property to buy a several thousand yuan designer bag for another woman, taking her to upscale restaurants, and even purchasing another love nest for her outside of our marital home. Dad, he wasn't just confused for a moment, he had been planning this for a long time. I checked that woman out, they've been together for almost a year. I have all the evidence of his affair in my hands. Photos, videos, hotel records, transfer statements, and recordings of how he and his mother have treated me over the years. The reason I was able to freeze his assets is because the law protects the innocent party. As for the child, I said, my voice finally cracking slightly, "Dad, I love him more than anyone. But can I bring him into this world? Let him be born without a father, or rather, with a man who is nominally a father but is actually incredibly selfish and cold? Let him live with me, living a life of barely making ends meet, being pointed and gossiped about? I can't do that. A long pain is worse than a short one, this is the last protection I can give him." After I finished speaking, there was a deathly silence on the other end of the phone. I could clearly hear my father's heavy breathing, each breath heavier than the last. For a long time, so long that I thought he had already hung up the phone. Only then did his voice, heavy with a nasal tone and suppressing immense anger, come from the other end of the phone. That family, dared to bully my daughter like this? That wasn't a question, but a kind of rage that had been completely ignited. That damned beast. A thing worse than pigs and dogs. My dad's voice began to tremble, it was an anger I had never heard before, I was really blind to hand over my good daughter to such a family. "Xiaoyu, don't be afraid." His voice suddenly rose, filled with unquestionable firmness, "This divorce is a must. A good divorce. You did the right thing. We won't take this lying down. We can't let those 2 bastards get a single penny. You wait, Dad will be there tomorrow. I want to see if the Zhou family members are all 3-headed and 6-armed. Also, about the child. You. Just think it through yourself. No matter what decision you make, Dad will support you. If the sky falls, Dad will be there to hold it up for you." Hanging up the phone, my tears finally burst. This time, it wasn't grievance, it wasn't sadness, but warmth. So, I'm not fighting alone. Behind me, there are also family members willing to shield me from the wind and rain. Liu came over, handed me a tissue, and gave me a gentle hug. "See, I told you, there are no parents in the world who don't love their daughters." I wiped away my tears, looked at the bright sunshine outside the window, and felt that I was full of strength from the inside out. Zhou Wenchuan, Zhou Wenqi, and that mother-in-law who twists the truth. Did you think that by bringing up my parents, you could make me submit? You are wrong. You just invited the most indestructible reinforcements for me. I am destined to win this battle. My dad came faster than I expected. The next day, in the evening, Liu drove her little red Polo and took me to the high-speed rail station. Standing in the crowd at the exit, my heart was more nervous than ever, like a soldier about to be inspected. I was afraid that my dad would be heartbroken to see my haggard appearance, and even more afraid that he would lose his mind because of anger. When a familiar and somewhat hunched figure appeared at the exit, my eyes instantly turned red. My dad seemed to have aged more than the last time I went home for the new year. His hair was whiter, and the wrinkles carved on his face by the years and wind and frost were also deeper. He was wearing a half-old jacket, with a pair of sneakers stained with dirt on his feet, and carrying a large, bulging snakeskin bag, filled to the brim. He looked out of place with the surrounding well-dressed urban travelers. But in my eyes, he was taller than anyone else. Dad! I quickly went up to him. When my dad saw me, a smile immediately appeared on his weathered face, but that smile contained more of a hidden heartache. He put down the snakeskin bag in his hand, stretched out his rough hands that were like old tree bark, and tightly grasped my arm, looking me up and down. You've lost weight. He only said these 3 words, his voice hoarse, but his eyes suddenly turned red. Thousands of words are not worth these 3 words. This is the first time in the 3 years since I left home that someone has said to me you've lost weight, instead of you look great, enjoying yourself at home is different. My tears could no longer be held back, and I threw myself into his arms, like a child who had suffered a great injustice, finally finding a haven to rely on. My dad didn't say anything, just patted my back with his big, rough hand, silently conveying his strength and comfort. Liu, watching from the side, also teared up. She stepped forward and naturally picked up the heavy snakeskin bag for my dad. Uncle, hello, I'm Song Yu's friend, Liu. You must be tired from your journey, let's go home. My dad then let go of me, wiped his eyes a little embarrassedly, and gave Liu an honest smile. Oh, good girl, thank you so much. Thank you for taking care of our Xiaoyu these days, I'm sorry to have troubled you. Uncle, you're too kind, Song Yu and I are like sisters, this is what I should do, Liu said cheerfully. Back at Liu's small apartment, my dad put the huge snakeskin bag in the living room, unzipped it, and the contents were instantly revealed to us. The bag was full of local specialties that I loved to eat. The dried bacon and sausages were made by him personally, a large bag of golden millet was grown by him, and there was a large jar of dark sesame walnut paste, which he specially ground for me to nourish my body because he knew my hair was not good since I was little. Your mom packed it for you overnight, she said things in the city are expensive and not as good as what we have at home. You're pregnant now, you can't deprive yourself, my dad said as he took things out of the bag, rambling on. When he said the words pregnant now, his hands paused, and the expression on his face became complicated. My heart tightened, knowing that the most difficult topic would eventually have to be faced. Liu tactfully excused herself to go to the kitchen to cook, leaving us father and daughter alone. The living room fell silent. My dad sat on the sofa, took out a cigarette from his pocket, pulled one out, but didn't light it for a long time, just held it between his fingers. This was his habitual action when he was anxious. About the child. Have you thought it through? He finally asked, his voice heavy. I nodded, sat next to him, and said softly, Dad, I've thought it through. I can't have this child. I can't let him grow up in a broken and resentful family. My dad silently looked at the cigarette in his hand, and after a long time, he sighed deeply, as if to exhale all the pent-up anger in his chest. Dad won't try to persuade you. He put the unlit cigarette back into the cigarette case, as if he had made up his mind. It's your body, your future, you decide for yourself. Dad only asks you, do you regret making this decision? No regrets. I looked into his eyes and answered firmly, if I regret anything, I only regret that I didn't listen to you and Mom in the first place, and was blinded by Zhou Wenxuan's sweet words and plunged headfirst into a fire pit. A flicker of pain and self-reproach flashed in my dad's eyes. It's Dad who's useless, making you suffer so much outside. No, Dad, it's not your fault. I held his calloused hand. I was blind myself. But now, I'm awake. I took out the craft paper file bag and handed it to my dad. Dad, take a look at these. My dad hesitated for a moment and took it. He took out the documents from inside, reading them page by page with utmost seriousness. When he saw those intimate photos of Zhou Wenxuan with other women, the hand holding the photos began to tremble violently. The muscles on his face were tense with anger, and the veins on his forehead stood out one by one. Beast! Utter beast! He squeezed these words out from between his teeth, the photos in his hand crumpled out of shape. He didn't roar, but this suppressed anger was more alarming than any shouting. I knew he was truly enraged. After he finished reading all the evidence, he carefully put the documents back into the bag, then looked up. In those cloudy old eyes, a kind of undeniable fortitude gleamed. Xiaoyu, listen to Dad. He looked at me, each word resounding with force, from now on, you don't have to worry about anything. If the sky falls, Dad will hold it up for you. We won't go looking for them, and we aren't afraid of them coming to us. We have the right on our side, and we can stand tall wherever we go. That kid surnamed Zhou, and his family, oh, our Song family, oh my daughter, I'll make them spit it out, every penny, with interest. Dad won't go back until this matter is settled. I'll stay here and watch over you. I'll see who dares to bully my Song Dahai's daughter. At that moment, all my unease and fear vanished. My reinforcements had arrived. The most indestructible one. My dad's arrival was like a stabilizing needle, completely steadying my heart. We didn't actively contact the Zhou family. Attorney Zhang was following the legal procedures step by step, and everything seemed so calm. But we all knew that beneath this calm lake surface lay a storm about to erupt. The Zhou family would definitely not let it go so easily. And the facts were just as we expected. On the third day after my dad arrived, the Zhou family's new round of counterattacks, or rather, their death throes, began. According to the news Liu later found out, after my mother-in-law returned home from my hometown, looking defeated and humiliated, an even more intense argument broke out within the Zhou family. Zhou Wenqi's kinship card strategy had completely failed. Not only had she failed to get my parents to pressure me, but she had actually caused my dad, this toughest trump card, to directly show up in the city. This made Zhou Wenqi, who had always thought highly of herself, feel an unprecedented sense of frustration and trouble. And Zhou Wenxuan, after all his assets were frozen and learning that my father had also arrived, fell into complete panic. He began to realize that things were completely out of his control. He was no longer the head of the family who could manipulate me and control everything I did, but a defendant who could be discredited and bankrupted at any time. What made him even more distraught was that his mistress, after discovering that his bank card was frozen and she could no longer spend money like before, also started making a scene. Their goal was clear, through Wang Shu's mediation, to bring the matter back from the level of legal dispute to the level of internal family conflict. As long as it didn't go to court, everything was negotiable. They were willing to make greater concessions in terms of money, such as increasing from 300,000 to 500,000, or even 600,000, as long as they could save Zhou Wenxuan's job and the Zhou family's reputation. Having made up her mind, Zhou Wenqi immediately dialed Wang Jiangwo's number. On the phone, she was tearful, portraying herself as an elder sister who was extremely worried about her ignorant younger brother and the broken family. She downplayed Zhou Wenxuan's making a mistake that men make, but pushed the main responsibility onto my ruthlessness and greed. She said that I was using the evidence of her husband's infidelity to demand an exorbitant amount of money, trying to force the Zhou family to ruin. She said that I didn't even want the child in my womb, and was determined to make a big deal out of it and ruin Zhou Wenxuan's future. She said that the Zhou family already knew they were wrong and were willing to make compensation, but I just wouldn't give them a chance. Her distorted and tearful accusations successfully aroused the sense of justice and sympathy of Wang Jingwo, the peacemaker. Outrageous! Absolutely outrageous! Wang Jingwo said indignantly on the phone, "How can a couple not make mistakes in their lives? It's good to admit and correct mistakes. How can you be so ruthless and even go to court? Isn't that pushing people to their death? Wenqi, don't worry, Uncle Wang will take care of this. I know Xiaoyu's father, so I'll personally come forward and talk to them. I will definitely resolve this matter satisfactorily for you." After hanging up the phone, Zhou Wenqi finally showed a cold smile of confidence on her face. She looked at Zhou Wenxuan, who was slumped on the sofa like mud, and said coldly, "Tomorrow, you come with me to see Uncle Wang. When you see Song Yu and her father, don't say anything, just kneel down for me. Cry. Admit your mistake. Be as pitiful as possible. I don't believe that their father and daughter's hearts are made of iron." A carefully planned drama of emotional blackmail was about to be staged. What they didn't know was that my father, this seemingly simple stone from the countryside, was much harder than they imagined. The next morning, Li Yu went to work. My father and I were discussing what to have for lunch when Zhang Lawyer called. "Ms. Song, the other party has come up with a new trick." Zhang Lawyer's voice was as calm as ever. "They contacted me through an intermediary named Wang, saying they hope to meet with you and your father to apologize in person and discuss a private settlement plan." I checked this Wang Jingwo. He's Zhou Wenxuan's father's former leader and has some reputation in their circle. This is a typical attempt to play the sympathy card and force you to compromise. My suggestion is to refuse directly. There's no need to waste time with them. I relayed Zhang Lawyer's words to my father. My dad was silent for a moment, the hand holding the spatula paused in midair, a subtle glint flashed in his eyes. "See them." He said only one word. "Dad?" I was a little puzzled. "See them, why not?" My dad put down the spatula, wiped his hands on his apron. "Don't they like to act? We'll just treat it as watching a play. Besides, some things carry more weight when said in front of outsiders than when we say them ourselves. Tell Attorney Zheng we'll see them. Let them decide the time and place." Although I didn't completely understand my dad's intentions, I trusted him unconditionally. Zhou Wenqi's efficiency was high, and the location was quickly set at a tea house not far from Liyu's residential complex. The time was 2 o'clock in the afternoon. In the afternoon, I accompanied my dad to the tea house 10 minutes early. We asked for a private room by the window and ordered a pot of pu'er tea. My dad seemed very calm. He wasn't restless like me. He just slowly drank his tea, watching the traffic outside the window, as if we were really just here to enjoy the tea today. At exactly 2 o'clock, there was a knock on the door of the private room. Zhou Wenqi pushed the door open. Behind her was an elderly man with gray hair and a hale and hearty appearance, presumably Wang Jingwo. At the very back was Zhou Wenxuan, dejected and with a haggard face. My mother-in-law didn't come. It seemed Zhou Wenqi also knew that her mother would only add fuel to the fire. "Uncle, Song Yu." Zhou Wenqi had a perfectly measured look of apology and fatigue on her face, as if she was already mentally and physically exhausted because of this matter. My dad nodded as a greeting, his gaze falling on Wang Jingwo. Wang Jingwo immediately stepped forward with a beaming face, enthusiastically extending his hands. "Old Song." "Oh, It's been a long time. You really haven't changed a bit. My dad stood up and shook his hand in a lukewarm manner. Leader Wang, hello. The phrase Leader Wang instantly created distance. The smile on Wang Jingwo's face stiffened for a moment, but quickly returned to normal. Hey, what leader or no leader, I'm retired, just a useless old man. He laughed heartily, sat down familiarly, then pointed at Zhou Wenxuan and said to my dad in a tone of an elder lecturing a younger generation, Wenxuan. What are you standing there for? Hurry up and apologize to your father-in-law and Song Yu. As soon as his voice fell, Zhou Wenxuan plopped and knelt straight in front of my dad and me. Dad! Song Yu! I was wrong. I really know I was wrong. I'm not human, I'm a beast. Please give me another chance. He sobbed, while slapping himself hard twice. The sound was loud. This scene was exactly the same as Zhou Wenqi had rehearsed. If I had come alone, I might have been intimidated by the scene, or felt embarrassed. But my dad just watched quietly, his eyes without a ripple, not even a frown. Seeing this, Wang Jingwo immediately started his mediation. Old song, look, the child already knows he was wrong. As the saying goes, a prodigal son who returns is more precious than gold. Wenxuan, I've watched him grow up, his nature isn't bad, he just made a mistake due to a moment of folly. We can't condemn him completely for one mistake, right? Husbands and wives are like teeth and tongue, how can they not bump into each other? Song Yu, you're a sensible girl. For the sake of your past affection, for the sake of the child in your womb, please forgive him this time. Harmony brings prosperity, how unsightly would it be to end up in court? It won't be good for anyone's reputation if it gets out. He picked up his teacup, took a sip to moisten his throat, and continued, when she has told me that your Zhou family is willing to offer 600,000 as compensation to Song Yu. Old Song, look, this sincerity is already very substantial. One should be forgiving whenever possible. Let's take the money, sign the agreement, and consider this matter closed. In the future, if the young couple lives well, we elders can rest assured. Don't you think that makes sense? His words were earnest and reasonable, attributing all the mistakes to a moment of folly, packaging all the calculations as family harmony, and calling the naked transaction compensation and sincerity. After he finished speaking, he looked at my dad expectantly, assuming that my dad would be persuaded by him, or at least hesitate. However, my dad didn't even bat an eye from beginning to end. Until Wang Jingwo was parched from talking, and the private room fell silent again, my dad slowly put down his teacup, the bottom colliding with the table, making a crisp, light sound. He raised his head, looking at Wang Jingwo with a calm gaze. Director Wang, have you finished speaking? Ah. Yes, I've finished. Then it's my turn to speak. My dad's voice wasn't loud, but every word was like a heavy weight, hitting everyone's heart. He first looked at Wang Jingwo, his tone with a hint of cold sarcasm. Director Wang, I respect you as an elder. But I cannot agree with a single word you said today. You say he made a mistake due to a moment of folly? Having an affair for more than a year during the marriage, buying a car and a house for the mistress, is that a moment of folly? My daughter is pregnant, and he's reluctant to buy her even a piece of beef, but he turns around and buys bags worth tens of thousands for other women. Is that also a moment of folly? Wang Jingwo's face instantly became very unpleasant. My dad didn't stop. He continued, you want us to forgive him for the sake of the child? It's precisely because I want to be responsible for my descendants that I can't let him be born into a family where the father is a liar and the grandmother is a bully. You want us to have family harmony? Director Wang, you're mistaken, our family's surname is Song. Whether the Zhou family prospers or not has nothing to do with us. My daughter is divorcing this beast soon, and there will be no relationship in the future. As for the 600,000 you mentioned, my dad sneered, do you think my daughter's 3 years of youth, the grievances she suffered, the tears she shed, and the reputation of our Song family, are only worth 600,000? Director Wang, are you here to mediate, or are you helping them humiliate us? His words were like a series of loud slaps, turning Wang Jingwo's face green and white, rendering him speechless. Finally, my dad's gaze, like two sharp swords, shot straight at Zhou Wenxuan, who was kneeling on the ground, and Zhou Wenqi, whose face was pale. I'm not here today to negotiate with you. I'm here to tell you that my daughter's demands will not be changed by a single word. Either you agree to all our conditions, Zhou Wenxuan leaves with nothing and publicly apologizes to my daughter. Or, we'll see you in court. My daughter has a lawyer, and she has evidence. We have plenty of time and we'll fight to the end. And, my dad stood up, looking down at them, and said the final words, from today on, my daughter has me to protect her. No one in your Zhou family will ever lay a finger on her again. After speaking, he took my hand and, without looking at them again, walked straight out of the private room. Behind us was deathly silence. The moment my dad and I disappeared at the door of the private room, that thin wooden door seemed to separate heaven from hell. Outside the door was the warm afternoon sun and the air of freedom. Inside was silence, coldness, and chilling desolation. Wang Jingwo's face, usually rosy from a life of comfort, was now turning the color of pig liver. He had lived for more than 70 years, been a leader his entire life, and was a respected peacemaker among his neighbors after retirement. Never had he suffered such humiliation. Song Dahai, that country bumpkin, that farmer he considered honest and easily manipulated, had, in his presence, refuted his well-intentioned words so thoroughly, every sentence like a slap in the face. Outrageous! Absolutely outrageous! He slammed the table, causing the teacups to jump, and tea splashed everywhere. He wasn't scolding my dad, but venting his own embarrassment and anger. He suddenly stood up, pointing at Zhou Wenxuan, who was still kneeling on the ground, and Zhou Wenqi, whose face was pale, trembling with anger. You Zhou family. Good. Very good. He said good several times, his anger and disdain undisguised in his tone. Is this what you call a momentary lapse in judgment? Is this what you call willing to compensate? What do you take me for? A tool to be used? To let me risk my reputation to clean up your family's mess? And what happened? She has evidence that can send you to hell, and you want to spend 600,000 to settle things? Are you stupid, or do you think I, old Wang, am a fool? The more he spoke, the angrier he became, pointing at Zhou Wenqi's nose and scolding, especially you. Zhou Wenqi. You are also an educated and respectable person, how could you do such a brainless thing? The situation is already so bad, and you still want to use such underhanded means to solve it? If you had just let your brother take out the money earlier and apologized to the girl properly, would things have come to this point today? Now look, the court summons is coming soon, all the property will be frozen, and the girl's father has come to our door. Tell me, how are you going to clean this up now? Zhou Wenqi was so scolded that she couldn't say a word. The face that usually wore an elite calm expression was now drained of all color, leaving only embarrassment and humiliation. After Wang Jingwo finished scolding, his anger had subsided a lot, leaving only deep fatigue and disgust. He waved his hand, as if shooing away something unlucky. Forget it, forget it. I can't manage the Zhou family's affairs, and I don't want to. Don't come looking for me again. I can't afford to lose face like this. After speaking, he didn't even look at the siblings, but directly opened the door and walked out without looking back, as if staying for another second would bring bad luck. With Wang Jingwo's departure, the last bit of support from the outside world in the private room was also withdrawn, leaving only the Zhou siblings in a cold, desperate mess. Zhou Wenxuan was still kneeling on the ground, his whole body as if his soul had been drawn out, staring blankly at the pool of brown tea on the ground, muttering to himself, "It's over. It's all over." Zhou Wenqi stood there, motionless, like a petrified statue. Her pride in her rationality and her carefully planned schemes were shattered by Song Dehai's simple but powerful words. For the first time, she realized that not everything in this world can be calculated and settled with money and favors. She thought my dad was an easy target to persuade, but she didn't expect him to be a stinky, hard rock that could break her teeth instead. "Sister." Zhou Wenxuan raised his head, looking at his sister like a helpless child, his voice full of fear and pleading. "What do we do now? I don't want to go to jail. I don't want to be ruined. Sister, think of another way." "A way?" Zhou Wenqi seemed to have heard a great joke. She slowly turned her head, and her beautiful eyes no longer had the shrewdness of the past, only a kind of near-crazy hysteria. She suddenly raised her foot, and the toe of her high-heeled shoe kicked Zhou Wenxuan hard in the shoulder. "Ah!" Zhou Wenxuan was kicked and stumbled, falling to the ground. "You know to call me sister now? You know to ask me to think of a way for you now?" Zhou Wenqi's voice was sharp and a little distorted. She approached step by step, looking down at her embarrassed brother on the ground, as if looking at a pile of mud that couldn't be plastered on the wall. "When you couldn't control yourself back then, why didn't you think about today? When you were using money to keep women outside, why didn't you think about today? When Mom was scolding Song Yu, and you were hiding like a coward, why didn't you think about today?" With each sentence, she kicked Zhou Wenxuan with the tip of her shoe, each kick harder than the last. "I told you to try to salvage things, to apologize. What did you do? You only knew how to threaten, how to humiliate her with money. Now look, you've pushed her to the limit, and you've brought her father here too. Are you satisfied? Are you happy? Zhou Wenxuan, I'm telling you. I'm out of options. Even God can't save you now. You listen to me clearly." Her voice was as cold as ice. "From now on, you're on your own. If you want to kneel, then kneel. If you want to beg, then beg. Don't bother me anymore. And don't expect our Zhou family to bail you out. This family has been ruined by you." Having said that, she seemed to have exhausted all her strength, staggering back a few steps. Then, she grabbed her bag and rushed out of the private room like a madwoman. The huge private room was left with only Zhou Wenxuan. He lay on the cold floor, looking at the luxurious yet dazzling crystal chandelier on the ceiling. His ears still echoed with his sister's heartless words and Song Dehai's resounding declaration. He suddenly burst into laughter, the laughter growing louder and louder, more and more desolate. As he laughed, tears streamed down his face. He lost. He lost miserably, utterly, and completely. What he lost was not just money, or the job he was about to lose, but also his dignity as a man, as the eldest son of the Zhou family, a pitiful and pathetic so-called dignity. After leaving the tea house, my dad was silent the whole way. His face was very calm, but I could feel that beneath his calm exterior, he was suppressing a volcano about to erupt. I held his arm tightly, wanting to use my body temperature to warm his heart, which had been chilled by anger. Back downstairs at Liyu's apartment complex, my dad didn't go upstairs but sat down on a bench downstairs. He took out a cigarette case from his pocket, and this time, he lit a cigarette, took a deep puff, and then slowly exhaled. The pale white smoke swirled around, blurring his weathered face. "Xiao Yu." After a long time, he finally spoke, his voice hoarse. "Dad, I'm here. Dad, today. Did I scare you?" He looked at me, a hint of guilt in his eyes. Dad has never been so red-faced with anyone in his life. But today, I couldn't help it. My tears welled up all at once. My father, a man who had been honest and law-abiding his whole life, had shown his hardest armor for me, and afterward, he was still worried about whether he had scared me. I shook my head, choking back tears, and said, "No, Dad. Today, I have never felt so secure, so confident, as I do today. Thank you, Dad. Thank you for letting me know that no matter how far I fly or how hard I fall, there will always be a home behind me, a pair of arms that can hold up a sky for me." My dad smiled, a smile with a hint of relief. He put out his cigarette, stood up, and patted me on the shoulder. "Let's go home. Tomorrow, there are things to do tomorrow." He's right, there are more important things to do. The next day, I got up early. My dad had already prepared breakfast for me, a bowl of fragrant and glutinous millet porridge he brought from his hometown, and 2 steaming boiled eggs. "Only when you're full do you have the strength." He put the peeled egg into my bowl. His words were simple, but they warmed my heart. After breakfast, my dad changed into clean clothes and said to me, "Let's go, Dad will go with you." I was stunned for a moment, and then I realized what he meant. "Dad, no need, I can go by myself." "No." He interrupted me, his tone unquestionable. "Last time, you went alone. This time, Dad has to be with you. You are not alone." Looking at his firm eyes, I couldn't say no. We went to the private hospital I had booked before. Liu originally wanted to ask for leave to accompany me, but my dad persuaded her, saying that with him there, it was enough. The environment of this hospital is very good, not many people, quiet and private. The nurses' attitudes are also very gentle, without a trace of probing or judgment. My dad accompanied me throughout the entire process, registering, paying fees, and doing preoperative examinations. He didn't understand those complicated procedures, so he followed behind me, like a silent and determined shadow. When I was in the examination room, he waited outside. When I talked to the doctor, he guarded the door. He didn't ask any extra questions, but he used actions to tell me that he was here, and there was nothing to be afraid of. When the nurse called my name and asked me to go to the operating room to prepare, my dad pulled me aside, took out something warm from his pocket, and put it in my hand. It was a cup of hot brown sugar water, in a thermos. "The doctor said your body will be weak after the surgery, it's good to drink this." He explained awkwardly, like a child who had done something wrong, "Dad will wait for you outside, don't be afraid, it will be over soon." I held the warm cup of brown sugar water, feeling the warmth flowing from the palm of my hand to the deepest part of my heart. I nodded and followed the nurse into the cold operating room door. This time, I didn't look back. Because I knew, outside the door, there was my light. The lights in the operating room were still so white, so bright. But my heart was no longer cold. The anesthesia was slowly injected into my body, and my consciousness gradually became blurred. Before I completely lost consciousness, the scenes of my 3-year marriage flashed through my mind. Zhou Wenxuan's former tenderness, the mother-in-law's meanness, Zhou Wenqi's shrewdness, and the family that wore a decent smile, but was actually rotten. Finally, the scene froze on my father's hands, wrinkled but full of strength. "Goodbye," I said silently in my heart. "Goodbye, baby. Forgive Mom for not bringing you into this world. Goodbye, Zhou Wenxuan. Goodbye, my unbearable marriage and my naive, foolish self. All of this should end." I don't know how long it took, but I woke up from a daze. My body felt weak, and a secret, dull pain came from my lower abdomen, but more than that, there was an unprecedented sense of relief, as if the huge rock that had been pressing on my heart for years had finally been completely removed. I opened my eyes and saw the soft light in the hospital room. Liu was guarding my bedside, and when she saw that I was awake, she immediately exclaimed with joy, "You're awake. How do you feel?" My dad also stood up from the sofa outside when he heard the sound and walked quickly to my bed, his eyes full of concern. "It's good that you're awake. It's good that you're awake." He rubbed his hands, a little incoherent. "Are you thirsty? Hungry? The doctor said you can have some porridge now." As he said that, he poured out a bowl of millet porridge that was still steaming from the insulated container. I looked at his busy figure, and then at Liu, who was peeling an apple for me next to me, and suddenly realized that my life, from this moment on, had truly started anew. Without the shackles of marriage and the burden of family, although I had nothing, I embraced the whole world. I still have a healthy body, a father who loves me, and a friend who will not abandon me. What I lost was just a hell. And what I gained will be a brand new future. Just then, Liu's phone rang. She glanced at it, and her face instantly became strange, with a kind of gloating excitement. She handed the phone to me, lowered her voice and said, "Quick, look, the show is about to begin. Guess where Zhou Wenxuan's true love is now?" Displayed on Liu's phone screen was a post from a local gossip forum, with the title written in glaring red bold font, "Breaking News. Mistress appears in front of municipal building, tearing apart, male lead suspected to be Zhou, young talent from XX unit." Attached to the bottom of the post were several blurry, secretly taken photos and a short video of 12 seconds. Although the photos were blurry, I recognized the protagonists at a glance. The video was taken in front of the solemn office building of Zhou Wenxuan's workplace. A fashionable, exquisitely dressed young girl was clutching a man's arm, crying and shouting hoarsely. That girl was Zhou Wenxuan's true love, whom I had seen countless times in photos. And the man she was grabbing onto, although desperately trying to cover his face with a briefcase, judging from the suit that I had ironed countless times in his figure, who else could it be but Zhou Wenxuan? "Zhou Wenxuan! You explain yourself. You liar! Didn't you say you were going to divorce that old hag of a wife immediately? Didn't you say you'd buy me a car and a house? What's going on now? All your cards are frozen, and you're hiding from me. Are you trying to weasel out of this?" The girl's voice was shrill and loud, full of anger and resentment after being deceived, attracting the attention of all the colleagues and passers-by entering and exiting the building. Zhou Wenxuan was extremely embarrassed. While trying to pry the girl's hand away, he lowered his voice and pleaded in a panic, "Don't make a scene here. Let go. Let's talk about this when we get back." "When we get back?" "I won't. You have to give me an explanation today. Otherwise, I'll stay right here and expose all the dirty things you've done. Let your colleagues, your leaders, see what kind of person you are." The video ended there. But the comment section below the post had already exploded. "Holy crap! Isn't that section chief Zhou from our unit? He always looks so decent and refined. Who knew he was playing it like this? I knew there was something fishy about him. I often saw him eating out with a woman. So it's true. I met his wife once. She's a very gentle woman, seems like a housewife. So pitiful. The best part is, I heard his wife has already filed for divorce and applied for property preservation, freezing all his money. This mistress probably can't get the money and got desperate, so she ran to his workplace to make a scene. Ha ha ha, this is going to be a good show. Our unit is very strict about lifestyle issues. He's really walked into it this time. His future is uncertain. I flipped through the comments page by page, feeling nothing but irony. Zhou Wenxuan, the man who took all my efforts for granted, trampled my dignity, and valued the family's reputation more than anything else, was ultimately stripped of his last fig leaf by the so-called true love he believed in the most humiliating way, leaving him disgraced and a laughingstock for everyone. This is probably what they call karmic retribution. Serves him right. Liu scolded gleefully from the side, "This is retribution. I told you a long time ago, a man who can be stolen from you can also be stolen by someone else. This kind of love maintained by money is thinner than paper. Now that he has no money, look, they've turned against each other and are fighting like cats and dogs. My dad also came over to take a look. After reading it, he just snorted coldly and commented with 4 words, "He brought it on himself." Then he took the phone away and said to me, "Don't look at this dirty stuff, it'll pollute your eyes. Hurry up and drink the porridge, your health is important." I nodded, took the porridge my dad handed me, and drank it in small sips. Yes, all of this is no longer relevant to me. How Zhou Wenxuan ends up, whether his future is ruined, how his true love will continue to entangle him, are all just insignificant, concluding fireworks before the start of my new life. And these fireworks are apparently more dazzling than I imagined. That afternoon, Zhou Wenxuan was called in for a talk by his unit leader. We don't know the specific content of the conversation, but the result was that he was suspended for self-reflection, and all his promotion qualifications under evaluation were cancelled. For someone in the system who values their future and reputation more than life itself, this is tantamount to a death sentence for their career. This news, like a bomb, completely detonated the Zhou family. The first to receive the news was Zhou Wenqi. When she heard from her unit leader that her younger brother Zhou Wenxuan had been suspended for personal conduct issues causing a bad influence, the hand holding the phone was shaking uncontrollably. She had tried so hard, even stooping to beg for help, just to protect her brother's future and the Zhou family's last bit of dignity. But in the end, all her efforts were reduced to ashes by her brother's so-called true love in the most foolish and tragic way. She hung up the phone and returned to her office in silence, closing the door. A few seconds later, a series of crashing sounds of things being smashed frantically came from the office. As for her mother-in-law, when she learned from Zhou Wenqi's tearful phone call that her proud son, the family's pride and joy, Section Chief Zhou, had been suspended and his future ruined, she felt a darkness before her eyes, and her years of high blood pressure surged instantly, causing her to fall straight backward. The Zhou family was in complete chaos. The ambulance siren echoed throughout the old neighborhood. Neighbors poked their heads out, watching the mother-in-law being carried onto a stretcher, watching Zhou Wenxuan following behind in a daze, all with expressions of schadenfreude, pointing and gossiping. The facade of the Zhou family as a literary family and respectable people, maintained for decades, was shattered on this day, leaving not even a single intact piece of cloth. And I was lying comfortably in a hospital bed, drinking porridge cooked by my father, looking at the bright sunshine outside the window. My phone vibrated. It was a message from attorney Zhang. MS. Song, the opposing lawyer, just contacted me, saying they are willing to accept all the conditions we previously proposed, agree to Zhou Wenxuan leaving with nothing, and hope to sign the divorce agreement as soon as possible. Congratulations, we won. I looked at the message and smiled slowly. Yes, we won. Winning wasn't just a lawsuit, but my own life. I rested in the hospital for 3 days. These 3 days, my dad and Liu took care of me meticulously. My dad was responsible for my 3 meals a day, changing the variety to stew soup and cook porridge for me every day, replenishing my body that had been depleted over the past 3 years little by little. Liu was responsible for providing me with spiritual food, sharing the latest bowel situation of the Zhou family with me every day, her eyebrows dancing with joy, more excited than if she had won 5 million. At first, my dad frowned and told her not to mention those unlucky people and things in front of me, so as not to affect my rest. Liu retorted confidently, "Uncle, you don't understand this. The best medicine to deal with bad people is to see their retribution. This is called mental therapy, which is more effective than any tonic." My dad thought about it and felt it made sense, so he joined the ranks of listening to gossip. The Zhou family was indeed full of excitement, with a new plot every day. After being suspended from his job, Zhou Wenxuan became a complete pariah. His former colleagues who used to call him brothers now walked around him, fearing to be contaminated with a bit of bad luck. His true love mistress didn't gain any advantage after making a scene at the entrance of his workplace. On the contrary, because the matter escalated, she was interviewed by the leader of her own company and eventually resigned in disgrace. The two are now completely at odds, and it is said that they are arguing online about the ownership of the luxury goods Zhou Wenxuan bought for her before, causing a mess. As for my arrogant mother-in-law, she suffered a sudden cerebral hemorrhage. Although she was rescued, she suffered from hemiplegia, with a crooked mouth and eyes, and she couldn't speak clearly. Lying in the hospital bed, she faces her son who is lost and ruined, and cold medical bills every day. As for Zhou Wenqi, she became the most stressed person. On the one hand, she had to deal with the strange looks from her colleagues in the workplace because of her brother's scandal. On the other hand, she had to take care of her sick mother, and also deal with the mess left by her brother. Liu said that someone saw her in the hospital, and in just a few days, she seemed to have aged 10 years, and she no longer had the elite decency and composure of the past. Listening to these, my heart was as calm as an ancient well without waves. I no longer felt anger, nor did I feel happy. I just felt that these people were pitiful and sad. They were eager for fame and fortune, calculating their whole lives, but in the end, they turned themselves into a joke. The day I was discharged from the hospital, the weather was very good. The sun shone through the windows of the hospital corridor, casting a golden glow on the ground. Lawyer Zhang called and told me that Zhou Wenxuan had completely softened and agreed to all my conditions, and we could go to the law firm to sign the divorce agreement today. My dad and Li Yu accompanied me. In the conference room of Zhang Law Firm, I saw Zhou Wenxuan again. In just a few short days, he seemed like a completely different person. Gone was the once dashing and well-dressed section chief Zhou, replaced by a haggard man with a stubbly beard, sunken eyes, and greasy hair. The rumpled suit he wore was the same one I had seen him in last time, even bearing some unidentifiable stains. When he saw me, a faint glimmer of light sparked in his cloudy eyes, like a drowning man spotting a last straw. The lawyer beside him tugged at him, signaling him to calm down. I didn't look at him, but calmly took a seat opposite Attorney Zhang. My dad and Li Yu, like two door gods, sat on either side of me. Attorney Zhang pushed 3 copies of the divorce agreement in front of us. The terms clearly stated: 1. Both parties voluntarily agree to divorce. 2. All marital property acquired during the marriage, totaling 1,274,000 yuan, shall belong entirely to the female party, Songyu. The male party, Zhou Wenxuan, voluntarily relinquishes all rights to the division of property and leaves with nothing. 3. The marital home is the premarital property of the male party's mother. After the divorce, the female party must move out within 15 days. This clause has already been fulfilled by me voluntarily. 4. There are no other debt disputes between the parties. Attorney Zhang concisely explained the terms and said to us, if both parties have no objections, you can sign. I picked up the pen without the slightest hesitation. Wait! Just as my pen was about to touch the paper, Zhou Wenxuan suddenly spoke, his voice as hoarse as an old bellows. Pushing aside the lawyer's obstruction, he rushed to me in a few steps, and with a thump, he knelt down again, without any dignity. Songyu, wife. I was wrong, I really know I was wrong. Tears streamed down his face as he grabbed my trouser leg, lifted his haggard face, and pleaded bitterly, look at me again, look at our past feelings. We were so good in college. I was bewitched, I was a bastard. Give me one more chance, one last chance, please? Let's not get divorced. The money, I'll give you all the money. I'll give you my salary card from now on. I'll listen to everything you say. I won't let my mom bother you anymore. Let's have a baby. Let's have another baby. He pleaded incoherently, painting a future that even he didn't believe in. Everyone in the conference room watched him in silence, as if watching a clumsy solo performance. Li Yu's face was full of contempt, and she almost couldn't help but swear. My dad's face was as cold as ice, and his hand on his knee was clenched into a fist. And I just listened quietly. After he finished speaking, after he had cried enough, I slowly lowered my head and looked at his face, a face that I had once loved deeply, but now only felt unfamiliar. "Zhou Wenxuan," I said, my voice calm without a trace of emotion. "Do you even believe what you're saying right now?" He froze suddenly, and his crying stopped abruptly. I gently peeled off his hand that was grabbing my pant leg, stood up, and looked down at him. "You don't love me, you're just used to my presence. You're not regretful, you're just afraid of losing everything you have now. You don't want to win me back, you just want to find a stepping stone to help you clean up the mess and make a comeback. Too bad, I don't want to be that stone anymore. You once asked me, what would I live on without you?" I looked at his empty, despairing eyes, and said clearly, word by word, "Now I'm telling you, I can live better without you. And you, Zhou Wenxuan, without me, without the family background and job you're so proud of, you are nothing." After speaking, I didn't look at him again, sat back down, and picked up the pen. Behind the word Songyu, I wrote the most dashing and resolute stroke of my life. The pen dropped, and the relationship ended. I stood up and said to Attorney Zhang, "Thank you. I'll leave the rest to you." Then, I took my dad's arm and, surrounded by Li Yu, walked out of the conference room without looking back. Behind me came Zhou Wenxuan's suppressed, beast-like wail of despair. That cry was the final elegy of my 3-year marriage. And I was facing the dazzling and warm sunlight outside the door. After we left, in the law firm's conference room, the tragedy belonging to Zhou Wenxuan alone continued. According to Attorney Zhang, Zhou Wenxuan knelt on the ground and cried for a long time, crying heart-wrenchingly, without any regard for his image. Even his own lawyer couldn't bear to watch and tried to help him up several times, but he was pushed away. Like a child abandoned by the whole world, he vented all his unwillingness, regret, and despair in the most embarrassing way. Finally, Attorney Zhang coldly reminded him that if he didn't sign, she would consider it a unilateral breach of contract, and all legal procedures would continue. This sentence became the last straw that broke him. He finally got up from the ground and, like a walking corpse, shuffled to the table. He picked up the divorce agreement that I had already signed, and looked at the delicate and resolute handwriting of Songyu on it for a long, long time. Then, with trembling hands, he used all his strength to sign his name. Those 3 words were written crookedly, with force penetrating the paper, as if he had used all the strength of the rest of his life. After signing, he seemed to have been drained of all his energy and spirit, slumped in the chair, staring blankly at the ceiling, motionless. His lawyer handled the follow-up matters, sighed, patted him on the shoulder, and told him to go home. Home? Where did he have a home now? That home, once bright and clean, with hot meals always waiting for him, had become a cold, empty shell with my departure. And his parents' home was now just a mess. He walked out of the law firm in a daze, wandering aimlessly through the bustling streets. The traffic was heavy, the noise deafening, and everyone was rushing about, heading towards their own lives. But he was like a forgotten ghost, lost and alone, not knowing where to go. In the end, he went back to the hospital. The atmosphere in his mother's hospital room was so oppressive it was suffocating. His mother was lying in bed, half of her body paralyzed, her mouth crooked, constantly drooling. The sharp, shrewd eyes she once had were now just cloudy and dull. When she saw Zhou Wenxuan enter, she made a hoarse sound in her throat, struggling to sit up, but to no avail. Zhou Wenqi sat by the bed, wiping the drool from her mother's mouth with a mechanical, numb motion, her face expressionless. She didn't even lift her eyelids when she saw Zhou Wenxuan, just asking coldly, "Signed?" Zhou Wenxuan nodded, his voice hoarse, "Signed." "Left with nothing?" "Yes." "Ha." Zhou Wenqi sneered, the laughter filled with endless sarcasm and exhaustion. She stopped what she was doing, raised her head, and stared at him with bloodshot eyes. "Zhou Wenxuan, are you satisfied now? For a woman outside, you lost your wife, lost your child, ruined your job, made mom sick, and gave away all our family property. You're such a good son to the Zhou family." Her words were like knives, stabbing fiercely into Zhou Wenxuan's heart. The mother on the bed seemed to understand the words, gave away all the family property, and became agitated. She shouted "Ah, ah," pointing at Zhou Wenxuan with her only movable hand, her cloudy eyes filled with anger and resentment. "Look, you've upset mom like this." Zhou Wenqi's voice was as cold as ice. "Now, this family is just me and a paralyzed mother. What about you? What are you going to do? You're a penniless, jobless man, how are you going to survive?" Zhou Wenxuan was speechless. He opened his mouth, but couldn't say a word. What could he do? He couldn't do anything. "I'm telling you, I don't have any more money to take care of you." Zhou Wenqi stood up, took out a bank card from her bag, and threw it at Zhou Wenxuan's feet. "There's 5,000 yuan in here, it's the last I can give you. Take this money, get out of this city, and go back to your hometown. Don't come looking for me again, and don't say you're my brother. I, Zhou Wenqi, don't have a brother as useless and irresponsible as you. From now on, our relationship as siblings ends here." After speaking, she didn't look at Zhou Wenxuan again, turned around, picked up the thermos, and walked out of the ward, as if even looking at him for a second longer would make her sick. In the ward, only Zhou Wenxuan and his mother, lying on the bed, glaring at him, remained. He slowly bent down and picked up the bank card on the floor. 5,000 yuan. He once bought a bag for his mistress that cost more than 10 times this amount. But now, this is all his wealth, the severance pay for breaking ties with his sister. How ironic. He looked at his mother on the hospital bed, once strong all her life, now only capable of impotent rage, and then he remembered me in the law firm, calmly signing the papers and leaving without looking back. He suddenly realized that the person he could truly rely on in this world, the one who unconditionally tolerated him, took care of him, and treated him as his whole world, had been pushed away by his own hand. And he himself had personally destroyed the kingdom he was once so proud of. He couldn't hold back any longer, squatting on the ground, holding his head in his hands, and letting out suppressed and painful sobs. His once glamorous life, from this moment on, was officially declared to have completely collapsed. And all of this was just the beginning of his self-inflicted suffering. While the Zhou family was in chaos and falling apart, my new life was unfolding in an orderly manner. On the third day after the divorce agreement was signed, lawyer Zhang informed me that the division of Zhou Wenxuan's marital property, after deducting legal fees, totaled 1.18 million yuan, and had all been transferred to my new account. When I saw that long string of numbers in the mobile banking app, my hand trembled slightly. This was not because of excitement, but a sense of unreality. This money was what I had exchanged for 3 years of youth, a failed marriage, and an unborn child. It was heavy, bearing too much blood, tears, and past. My dad saw my emotions, patted me on the shoulder, and said in a deep voice, "Xiaoyu, this money is what you deserve. Take it and don't overthink it. This is your confidence and your capital to start over." Liu also echoed from the side, "Yes. Take it. You must take it. Think about how Zhou Wenxuan and his mother wanted you to leave with nothing. Now that this money is in your hands, it's like cutting flesh from their bodies. The more it hurts them, the more satisfied we are. Just think of it as doing good for the people." Her words were rough, but the principle was not. Yes, this is what I deserve. I will no longer feel sorry for myself, nor will I indulge in the past. I regard this money as a medal for bidding farewell to the past, and a ticket for me to move towards the future. The first thing I did was move out of Liu's house. I can't keep bothering her, and besides, my dad and I need a new home that truly belongs to us. With Liu's help, we quickly rented a 2-bedroom apartment in a nice community in the city center. The apartment is not big, but it faces south, has plenty of sunlight, and a small balcony. On the day of the move, the 3 of us were busy all day. My dad was responsible for assembling the newly bought furniture, Liu was responsible for directing, and I cleaned the house spotlessly. In the evening, the afterglow of the setting sun shone through the clean glass windows, onto the brand new floor, and also onto the smiling faces of the 3 of us. My dad cooked us a lavish dinner in the brand new kitchen. Braised pork, sweet and sour fish, and my favorite scrambled eggs with tomatoes. Simple home-style dishes, but the most delicious and comforting meal I've had in the past 3 years. At the dinner table, Liu raised her glass and said to me with great enthusiasm, "Songyu, congratulations. You're free from the sea of suffering and reborn. From today onwards, you are Neo Huru Songyu. The future is promising, and the prospects are limitless." My dad also poured himself a glass of wine, a rare occurrence. He looked at me, his eyes slightly red, and all he could say was, "Honey, from now on, live however makes you happy. Dad supports you." I raised my tea-filled cup in place of wine and clinked it heavily against theirs. "Thank you," I said, to my new life. After settling down, I didn't rush to find a job, nor did I squander the money. The first thing I did was take my dad to the best health checkup center in the city for a comprehensive physical examination. My dad kept saying it was a waste of money, but when he received the health report with all the indicators being normal, the relieved look on his face betrayed his inner joy. Then, I used the money to enroll both myself and Liu in an advanced aromatherapy course. This has always been my interest, but I didn't have the means in the past. Now, I want to turn it into my career. Liu initially declined, saying she was just accompanying me and didn't need me to spend money on her. But I insisted, yeah, this is different. We're not just best friends, we're going to be partners in the future. Together, we'll open our own aromatherapy studio. When I said this idea, Liu's eyes lit up instantly. She hugged me excitedly, "Oh my God. Songyu, this idea of yours is amazing. Let's do it. I'll be responsible for marketing and operations, and you'll be responsible for technology and products. The 2 of us joining forces will definitely trample all those chauvinistic men under our feet." Our future was sketched out in clear outline in these few words. Days passed, and my life became fulfilling and busy. Every morning, Liu and I went to class together to learn about various essential oils and massage techniques. In the afternoon, I would research various aromatherapy recipes at home, and my dad became my first guinea pig, being soothed and lulled to sleep every day by various calming and relaxing scents. His years of chronic insomnia were miraculously cured. I never thought about Zhou Wenxuan or anyone related to him again. They were like the dust of a past life, completely shaken off by me, no longer stirring up the slightest ripple in my heart. Until one day, when Liu was scrolling through her phone, she suddenly said, "Huh. Look, that scumbag seems to have gone back to his hometown." She handed me the phone. On it was a post from a forum in their hometown county. Someone had posted a photo saying they saw a familiar figure on the construction site, who looked a lot like Zhou Wenxuan, the college student who had been admitted from the county. The photo was taken from far away and is very blurry. A man in cheap camouflage clothing, wearing a hard hat, is carrying bricks on a dusty construction site. He is hunched over and looks much older than he actually is. I only glanced at it before returning the phone to Liu, saying nonchalantly, "Really? That's good, at least he's earning his own living." Liu looked at my calm face, stunned for a moment, and then smiled. "That's right. None of our business." She put away her phone and didn't mention it again. We both understood that when I could talk about his current misfortune in such a calm tone, it meant that I had truly and completely let go in my heart. Another bright and sunny morning. I got up early and stood on my small balcony, stretching languidly. The flowers I planted on the balcony are in bloom. The pink roses, with glistening dewdrops in the morning light, are blooming particularly brightly. The sounds of children playing and laughing came from downstairs, and in the distance, the city was awakening with the hustle and bustle of traffic. The aroma of my dad cooking wafted from the kitchen, accompanied by his tuneless humming. "Xiao Yu! Breakfast is ready. Come and eat." I turned around and replied, "Coming." The sunlight shone on my face, warm and comforting. Looking at this world full of life before me, at this brand new world that I had built with my own hands, I smiled a heartfelt and incredibly relieved smile. All past events are as if dead yesterday. All future events are as if born today. My new life has just begun.